Hello, friends of SKELE VADER. Welcome to episode 5 of Toy Frenzy. And we've got, of course, the Wizard of Oz here, Oz Guys.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, and me, SKELE VADER. And we're really happy to have you all here. In fact, we're really excited because we got a little surprise here for you in just a little bit. Yeah, so let's see who we got here in the chat. We got I'm so sorry, QPN4SIRQP. I can never figure out how to pronounce that, but I'm glad to see you here.
That's Enforcer.
What was that?
Enforcer.
Enforcer.
There you go.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm on it. And Thanos Copter, welcome to it.
Thanos Copter, good to see you.
Yeah, and I want to say, Thanos, you sent Thanos sent us some pictures of what he's been building and awesome stuff. And I absolutely can't wait. Just so you know, I'm keeping those images. I can't wait to talk about crafting and building and making stuff when we get around to doing that episode. And Gamer Bud here on time. We were a little bit late. Sorry about that, guys.
All right. Gamer Bud, good to see you.
Yeah. And Ganga, of course. Good to see you too.
Always a pleasure, Ganga.
And there's Corey. Nice to see you, Corey. And Masters Maniac Mexico and the Prowler. Nice to see you all.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for making it out tonight. Corey, Masters, and Prowler. All good to see everybody.
So, Oz, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. I've had some good news this week going into the weekend. That's definitely got me in a great mood. I gave myself a haircut. Since I don't have anything up top, got to trim it off the bottom here a little bit. So did that, trim that up, man, and just feeling great. Really feeling upbeat right now.
I mean, there's nothing like getting a little bit of good news, get you through the week. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's really, really awesome.
Somebody's here. King T stopped by to say hi today.
Excellent. Always good to have King T in the house with us.
Yeah.
Speaking of customs, the greatest.
Oh, that's so funny. Like, that's my version of a custom. I've never taken a paintbrush to an action figure except for recently with Beastman's white teeth. Yeah, this is as far as I have gotten as far as a creative endeavor with the action figures.
It's still fantastic.
And I just want to say that I'm really excited because I did bite the bullet and buy the Viewmaster Super Impulse World's Smallest Viewmaster, and I can't. Maybe I can.
Oh, I don't know that you can. It's not really coming through.
There's a scare glow in here with these.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it works.
But look at that. It actually does the rotation. That is so awesome.
Yeah. It's a little bit big for action figures, but I brought my big Beastman, and I think it's even a little bit big. No, it's actually.
No, that's about right from what I remember.
So I'll figure out a way to make him hold on to that.
That's great.
Did you get anything good this week, Oz?
No, not this week. Today's was typically the go out and toy hunt day, and unfortunately didn't get out today. So I'll be going out tomorrow, and maybe we'll have some cool picks for next week.
Ooh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
I went to a couple of stores this week. I didn't see anything. Yet another week of no finds out there, but I'm okay with that. Money's tight these days, and but this was pretty affordable, $10 on Amazon, and I actually reached out to the Super Impulse guys, and fingers crossed we'll get a response from them. So
that would be great.
If you're watching Super Impulse guys, we'd love to chat with you and talk to you about your world's smallest figures.
We love them. Absolutely.
Gamer Bud said, I just spent a good hour putting together 8 very cheaply made figure stands. Didn't break one of them. That's awesome. That's great.
Oh.
and Gamer Bud got a new figure tonight. I got to paint it up a bit. Ooh, Martian Manhunter. Yeah, I've seen that.
Nice.
Image of that. That's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, some paint splotches. I know that kind of stinks sometimes when they're not perfect, but I'm glad you're happy. And yeah, you totally got to get a viewfinder. So I know you're all waiting with bated breath because at the beginning of today we said we have a surprise. The surprise actually is a special guest, which Oz and I are really excited to have. I know that we've been sort of giving them a shout out almost every episode so far.
Yeah.
We're very lucky. Hello, Maribel. Welcome.
Maribel, glad you can make it. Thanks for joining us.
We're very lucky that, and actually he reached out to us and said, hey, if you guys are talking about something interesting tonight that I might want to participate in. And, at first I was like, oh yeah, that would be cool. How would that happen? And cause I'm a compulsive planner. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to see if he'd be willing to jump in. And sure enough, he said yes. So, everybody, please give a warm welcome to Shawn from Legends of Grayskull Podcast. Welcome,
hello.
Shawn.
Shawn,
Thanks.
good to see you.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. This is, I'd say this is an honor because SKELE VADER, being SKELE VADER on Facebook and YouTube. I mean, geez. So it's like, hey, you're talking about CGI, maybe? I really enjoy talking some shop, and yeah, when SKELE VADER asks you to join in, you say yes, as Winston Zeddemore once said. So
That's right.
Very sweet. That's very sweet. Well, Oz and I are big fans of Legends of Grayskull Podcast, and
thank you.
And one of these days we'll get the Dooch in to speak with us. It'd be great to have Matt in here.
Yeah.
But I really want to say, number one, thank you for something would make me very nervous. So, and Oz already knows this about me, but you just said, hey, if you ever want to chat about CGI He-Man, I'm in it right now. I'm deep in it, and you reached out, and that I really admire that. So thanks for doing that.
I am somebody that I will sometimes jump into things and not think of what I'm about to do, but I don't think this is going to be one of those cases where my wife's going to go, I told you not to do this. So, yeah. I figure I'm amongst friends. We all have a common interest and common likes here. So
that's right.
You're getting lots of welcomes here. And
hello, Gamer Bud.
Love your podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And we also got let's see. Hey, Shawn from Thanos Copter.
Hi, Thanos Copter. I have heard his name so much. Or I feel bad. I keep saying he for everybody. I don't know but I've been binging your show in the last week, and I'll tell you what, I've heard Thanos Copter's name so often that it's like I feel like that's a celebrity talking to me now. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's awesome. And Masters Maniac Mexico said fame is in the house. What a panel guest, Super BN.
He's probably like, I'm done. Sorry, it's just me.
And then we got Gamer Bud saying, oh, we need a MOTU multiverse live stream with a bunch of MOTU streamers. We call it Masters of the Podcast Universe. Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be awesome.
I know the Dooch, as I like to call him, was actually trying to do something along those lines, and it didn't work. But maybe we can try it again and see, get you guys involved, see if podcasters of the universe want to jump in too and go crazy. So
yeah,
I think that would be fun to meet.
Absolutely,
try out.
Yeah, that would be fun. I love the dynamic that podcasters and Legends of Grayskull have with each other. It's sort of like a what's the term I'm looking for? I don't want to say love hate because I don't think there's any hate, no hate at all.
Right, no hate.
Love and snarky.
it's kind of like a sibling rivalry, I guess, or something, where I started listening to podcasts because of Podcasters of the Universe. Back in 2017, I started a job, and they luckily enough let me have my headphones on while I was working, and I had my phone, and I'm like, I got to hear something in my ears to make my stress and my anxiety go down. And I'm like, what better than a He-Man podcast? So I found them, and they were on their first episode, and I'm like, perfect. Listen to them. And I have been a loyal listener to theirs ever since. And they've known me because of that. I've reached out to them and vice versa and stuff. And then once Matthew said, hey, why don't you and I do one? I'm like, oh, they're going to give me so much crap because I've been talking to Steve and Jeremy over at Podcasters for like 3 years by that point. And here I am on a podcast, and they know my answers are the longest ones they ever have to talk about when I do the listener feedback part, and I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna end well. But yeah, they love to give us crap. They always go, oh, the Dooch is this. We love you, Shawn. Oh, the Dooch is this. They always like to give him all the garbage, and I'm like, hey, that's awesome. Let him have it. I love having the love. I won't lie. So
that's awesome. I'm glad that it's good to hear a little bit of that like history too, because I've always wanted to know like how you guys got started with your podcast and
well, it was so I'm on 2 podcasts. Ironically, I'm on Council of the First Ones, which was the first show that I basically applied for that one. There was a post on Facebook late one night, and it was from Nerds on the Couch, and they do various geek podcasts out there, not just Masters of the Universe and She-Ra. But they're like, hey, if you're interested in podcasting, we'd like to kind of do like a next generation version of the show, have new people on, but there'd be the same point people. And I was like, well, I like talking about Masters. Send them a letter, and next thing I know, they're like, hey, can you do a quick interview with us? And I'm like, sure. Next thing I know, he's like, oh, you'd be great to have on the show. I would. We'd love to have you. You would? And the next thing I know, I'm on it. And yeah. And then I was doing that. And then on top of that, when the new Netflix She-Ra series started, I reached out to one of the Facebook groups that's She-Ra centric more than Masters. And I said, when this happens, do you mind if I do a print and you could like raffle it off in honor of this, since this is the first Masters of the Universe centric series to air in like almost 20 years at that point, because 2000X ended in the early 2000s. And they're like, sure. Well, I did this piece of She-Ra on Swiftwind and did colored pencils and everything. I'll have to give you a copy of it if your listeners want to see it then.
Yes, please.
But yeah, they raffled it off. That night was so cool too, because in the comments section they said, can you anybody who wants to be involved in this, and they showed the image, they're like, we want you to say, for the honor of Grayskull, to be entered into the raffle. And that night I kept checking back, and there was like 1 and 2, and then all of a sudden there was 10, then all of a sudden there was 50, and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing all this for the honor of Grayskull going down my phone screen, and I actually got like chills and a little choked up, going like, holy crap, like I didn't expect this piece to be as excitable for people. And then it ended up Matt Dooch. So I reached out to him, and he and I just started a friendship through me needing to get his address to send him his winnings, and here we are.
That's awesome. That's great. So there you have it, folks. The history of the beginning of the Grayskull Podcast.
Yes,
that's great.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride so far, but it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started listening to Roast Google Dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then I discovered Podcasters of the Universe, and then I discovered Legends of Grayskull Podcast. It went just like that, and
the domino effect, one after the other.
Yes, I mean it was great. I mean, and I'm still sort of. It's too bad Roast Google Dinner doesn't happen anymore, but because I really enjoyed those. But I mean, Podcasters and Legends, both of those shows just like totally satisfy that itch that I have. So
Well,
thank you guys.
Sure.
We've got people I want to say hi to. First, Scott Baker jumped in. So welcome, Scott. Good to see you.
Nice
And
guy.
Duchess of Darkness said hello.
Duchess, good to see you.
Hello.
And Corey said, for the honor of Grayskull.
That's right.
Thank you. I would have never expected those words to have touched me that much like that night. But yeah, I've always been more of a He-Man guy. But just seeing that going down that screen, I'm like, okay, you got me, guys. You got me.
That's awesome.
You know.
Gamer Bud said, Scott is your icon of He-Man cake. So I think he's talking to Scott here. But you put the comments in here, folks. I'm gonna post them. And then I do want to say, because it's exciting that there are comments. And I do want to say to Maribel, no one's scared. If you're going to speak Spanish to Masters Maniac Mexico and you're totally fine, definitely go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
if you'd like to chime into the chat, feel free to do so either way. So Oz and I compiled some slides for tonight. Before we jump into CGI He-Man,
Sure.
I feel like it's exciting and there's a lot of buzz going on about the announcements from Mattel Creations this last MOTUesday. Right, Oz, what were your thoughts when you first saw this pop up?
Well, I mean, firstly, I just want to say, like, MOTUesdays, I thought it was great when they announced it, and they've just been giving us, like, all these little bits. Like, I really think the best news that we've had so far was about the Masterverse 2-bed. And really everything else, it's been fun, it's been great, but there hasn't been, like, the kind of big announcements I was expecting.
Yeah.
So MOTUesday rolls around, and I'm just kind of hanging out like, okay, let's see what's coming up. And then this dropped.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. So it's going to go on sale September 9th. And then opening through the weekend, a made to order period. So you mean everybody, and mind you, we've all heard the outcries of people. Everybody was anxious about how they were going to do Grizzlor, a core character who a lot of people need in their collections or want in their collections, and it was going to just be a Mattel Creations exclusive, and we all know how that goes. Some people are lucky, some people are not.
Yeah.
So giving us a 48-hour window made to order, everybody gets one. I mean, what better news could there have been? And then better news hit.
Yeah, man. I want to say also the big. I feel like bigger than the reveal of these two figures being made available in such a way. I feel like the big MOTUesday gift is proof that Mattel is listening to us. There are many occasions where we feel like if we're invested in an IP, the company isn't listening to us or listening to our needs. Right. And we're big fans of. We live in California. We're big fans of Disneyland. We rarely get to go there because it's so expensive. And there are times where I feel like a corporation like Disney or a corporation like Hasbro and Mattel, I know they're different levels. But when they actually show evidence of listening to the fan base and offering something to them directly because of what they've said, I think that's the real MOTUesday gift this last Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, just overjoyed after the Grizzlor announcement, and then to find out, for everybody who missed out, they're putting Wondar back up there. I mean, that's
and
it makes you speculate how things are going to go for the future.
Yeah.
Or is this going to be the practice moving forward? Because I really hope it is. Are we going to see re-releases of previous Mattel Creations exclusives? And I'm not just talking like mini comic Triclops or, I mean, I could see maybe not some of those con exclusives going back up, like the original Sunman that released and that She-Ra that had released. Those were kind of convention exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
But what about like that Art of Engineering Skeletor, that they had put out, that clear Skeletor where you could see how all the joints fit together? Yeah. I mean, something like that would be just absolutely amazing to see them put that back out for people to get a chance at. Give it that 48-hour window. And I certainly hope they put this into practice moving forward, because it definitely will make it a lot easier. I think we can all agree that it takes all the power away from the scalpers.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Literally no need for those guys to buy up as many as they can anymore, because everybody who really wants one can get one at retail, and that's what makes it amazing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if scalpers will be, since it's made to order, like September 28th to September 30th, the scalpers are going to be ordering like 20, 30, 40, 50 of these made to order, just in anticipation of being able to sell them. Like I'm curious to see what happens with this, because this could be like, in many ways, it could be like the future of toy sales.
Right. I mean, I think that would actually be great for somebody who owns a like mom and pop toy shop. There's not many of them out there, but for them to get a stock in of such an elusive character like Wondar, and then maybe somebody who just wasn't really interested at the time or whatever, or misses the window, goes into their shop and says, hey, I can get a Wondar.
Thanos Copter said it'll probably still have a limit. I think so too. I think so.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see how that works. So Shawn, I want to go back here really quick, because when I know Shawn is a big fan of classics, and the classics Grizzlor is awesome. But so I want to know, Shawn, what are your thoughts about? I know you and Matt, I've listened to all of your discussions about Origins figures and comparison classics. So what do you think about this particular figure?
Oh, this figure, like, seeing it this way it's why the line is it's the nostalgia. Looking at that, I'm seeing my childhood again. And it's reminding me too, because like out of the Horde, Grizzlor was like top 2 for me. I always liked Hordak the best because he was Hordak. And then right under him was Grizzlor, and I always thought he was actually scarier than Beastman. Yeah. And especially that mini comic when they introduced him, and it's like Buzz-Off's telling that like, the spooky story about him and all that. And so like it always stuck with me. So I really like it. And on top of that, I like that he's coming with another weapon other than a crossbow in this version. So that's really cool. And yeah, I mean, I'm digging that they got him fluffy. Yeah, I guess furred, whatever you want to call it. I love that they went there. I am still like, why did they do this as an exclusive over doing something else though? Like Coldar makes sense, Wondar makes sense, but Grizzlor is like, he's right up there as one of the main 4 or 5 Horde characters. It just seems so weird to have this be the way they're doing it, but I'm glad he's here's the thing though, at the end of the day, this made to order deal, I feel like they're like Super 7 is the one that I remember starting that when they did the Ultimates first 5 figure wave, and I love that. I absolutely love that, and it made it feel special, made to order. It's not just, oh, here's this and then we're going to put them out at, in toy stores later on or something. No, it's made to order, period. And you can at least plan for it, because here it's September 9th through 11th. Yeah. You have time. You definitely have a buffer period right now to do it. Yeah. So, I have yet to crack the code on the thinking of the brand managers at Mattel of how they're handling some of this. But at least this is a better option than, hey, it's a once and done. Oh, it's sold out. Sorry, guys, like the $1 deal and everything. And I saw that all across my Facebook feed when that happened, and I'm like, I felt so bad for anyone who wanted that. Now, again, with $1 as well.
Yeah.
And he's a character that I got turned on to through classics.
Yeah.
And I love that he's getting love now through Revelation, and people are really wanting this figure. So I almost feel like, it's like before I did this, I had dark hair, and that would have been my He-Man as a kid.
That's
because
great.
Yeah, it would have been awesome if I would have had him as a kid. That would have been He-Man to me, and
I could never find the He-Man, and in the stores, I probably would have tried to get him, but if I had seen this, I think I would have tried even harder. He became like, this guy is he resonates with me because I'm a dark-haired guy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Likewise,
yeah.
I've said on Legends of Grayskull that I always equate him as He-Man is Luke Skywalker, but there's your Han Solo. It's got that kind of vibe, and it's like he's got the blaster on top of that, so it's got that I got a sword, but I'm also going to shoot you if I can't get you with the sword. Versus He-Man's got just his axe, shield, and power sword, and it's like I like that vibe. Yeah. He's got a little more of the loose cannon thing, and for anybody that didn't get it, and they can do the made to order deal here as well. Awesome. So that is great that they're doing it.
Gamer Bud said, "I have dark hair too." He would have been one. He would have been my.
That's awesome.
My buddy doll.
Love the My Buddy doll.
I actually think, going back to Gamer Bud's comment, Mantenna would have been Mantenna with the 4 legs. I could see that being an exclusive, but they made that a common release. So it's just they're making odd decisions. Like the 4 legs seems like a really cool gimmick it would be a drive for Mattel Creations exclusive.
Well, even the waves are confusing. Like like we have Eternia coming out before there's Snake Mountain.
Yeah, it's so weird.
And it's like all of these things where it's like, let's just shoot from the hip and see what happens. And I kind of like it from you never know what to expect. But I also am like, if I was collecting the line and deep into it, I'd also be annoyed because I didn't know what to expect, because it's like, now I'm buying Sunman. What's going on here?
I think that they announced Eternia. This is my theory, and I could be wrong, but I have a gut feeling that the Eternia playset's been announced, but we've seen it, but they're going to hold off on giving us the price point on that until after they reveal the Snake Mountain. That's just a theory. I feel like that's what's happening behind the scenes, and I think that Snake Mountain is going to be available sooner, like showing up in stores, kind of like, and this is happening because of the recent Wave 10 showing up in Malaysia. And I feel like that's where we're seeing the Snake Mountain on Digitino's. Is it Digitino's card back, Oz? I can't remember which character.
You see it on Rat Lord.
Rat Lord, that's right. That's right. There's another one too. I think there's another one in Wave 10. I feel like
the maniacal mimics, the Leo Faker and Copycat 2-pack that also has Snake Mountain on it.
Right. So they could pull fast one on us, I think.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, part of what me feels is that they're really looking at where they can make a big bang for their buck.
Yeah.
Kind of thing with what they're doing in certain ways. Koldar sold out in about 30 minutes. Wondar, it took less than 2. And these are obscure characters. Koldar never had an original release. Didn't even see a release in Classics. And Classics was deep diving for figures. Making up new ones and deep diving into the lore. We never got a Koldar with that. I think that when there's something that people see. Now, when everybody was growing up and everybody was kids and we were getting these things, Wondar, I didn't even know about him until like the 90s with the birth of the internet, seeing that brown-haired He-Man. Because, again, he wasn't available at retail. Seeing something new like Coldar, there were so many of us that saw Eternia, but never owned Eternia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they've realized that with some of these, and they're like, okay, these guys have money to spend, which clearly they're a little mismatched on that because not everybody's got a high price tag they can pay for a lot of this stuff, but they know we're more willing to try.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got a drive behind us for this. And so they're throwing it out there. They know if they put a Snake Mountain out at retail, it's going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
They know it is. So there's no real fear there. Eternia, putting it out at a retail store, that's a risk.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
if we make it available as a Mattel Creations and it's crowd-funded, will it succeed or will it fail? And the truth is, with the backing of the fan base, if they put it at a reasonable price point. Now, I looked this up on a inflation calculator and saw what we were looking at. So Eternia was $140 when it retailed back in the 80s, which is a ton of money in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
If you upscale that to today's dollar standard, you're looking at $400. So is that a price tag that you would be willing to pay for the Eternia playset? I know people are saying, oh, it's going to be $600. Oh, it's going to be $800. But if you're looking at the pure cost of how much it cost for retail in the 1980s, where, mind you, the electronics for a working tram system in a toy like that are way more expensive than they are today.
Yeah.
The electronics cost alone has gotten cheaper. Now, the plastic itself might be a little bit more expensive these days. But overall, can we expect to see around a $400 price tag? Like, what would be the maximum you're willing to spend out on something like that?
Masters Maniac Mexico, I know he's talking about Snake Mountain, but he said, sorry, wife and dogs, no food this week. So I think that, you know, I think some of us might be willing to spend $400, but if it goes higher than that, Oz and Shawn, I don't know, Shawn, if you're interested in getting it, but if it's at a higher price point than 400, I think people are going to have a hard time with that.
Personally, like, the thing about it that I appreciate, again, from Mattel is they are going to some deep cut stuff to make the fans go, I didn't have this, and now is my chance. It's not the original, but this feels like it will work in place of the original, especially when the original is about over a mortgage payment to get, and also to find complete. Yeah. And you know, unbroken and everything, because I've heard about, like, the tram tracks on that thing over time have gotten brittle, and you know, it's like all sorts of things with that one in particular, that it makes sense if that is a part of your collection that is still, there's that hole on your shelf. Yeah, you know, like, why not? I mean, it to me, it's like there's still updates in this one that would make it really easy for you to go, well, it's kind of cool because there's these bells and whistles they didn't even have originally in this, and it kind of upgrades it even, you know, to an extent. So in that way, I think it's great. For me personally, I remember going to a Kmart and walking by it on the shelves back in the 80s and looking at it and thinking that the lion head part was cool. But when I saw the tram, I was like, I'm out, because I thought it was like an amusement park ride that Masters of the Universe was now making, and it just was like, what is this? I don't like you started me out with Castle Grayskull and mystery and savagery and barbarian stuff, and now all of a sudden it's like Disneyland. What are you doing? And I never ever, like, I had a Grayskull and I had the Fright Zone as a kid, and I had Point Dread and the Talon Fighter to put on top of Grayskull. And those were my play sets for Masters. I didn't even have a Snake Mountain until like probably close to 10 years ago. So for me, it's like I said, I love that it's there for the people that are wanting that. And if you never got it and really need it, there it is. For me, like there's no nostalgia, and that's part of why Masters works for me, is always the nostalgia behind it.
Yeah.
And that feeling of being a kid again, seeing some of those characters that you love.
Yeah.
So, again, I think it's great they're doing it though. Deep cuts, Lundar, Koldar, Eternia, bam. That's great.
Yeah. It's a lot of people are wondering about like the plastic, and of course if it's a sturdier plastic, that's definitely going to add to the price point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And GamerBud's making a good point, since Mattel is making it, maybe the track can be the same plastic as the track sets for Hot Wheels, because those things don't break. That's really true. But yeah. I feel like I never saw it in the store. I was already kind of pulling away from Masters, at least as a young teen, preteen, when all the changes happened and that place that came out. I was already kind of disinterested by the time Scareglow and King Randor came out, and it's like it doesn't look cool, right, to be playing with these toys. I still like them, but
well,
it couldn't be cool showing up to school with your He-Man lunchbox.
I'll show you Thunder Punch. You get thwacked. That's metal.
But when I did finally see a picture of Eternia playset, I was like, "That's weird. That seems so like you just said it. You articulated it perfectly, like Disneyland." But now that I'm older, I really feel like that makes me like it even more.
A little bit.
It's the thing about the line. It is this everything and the kitchen sink. Like I know Val Staples has said that in a few interviews, and that was, to me, that was a perfect case in point of that's the kitchen sink. Like that's everything that you would have never expected in this line. I mean, we've seen robotic animated spiders, dragon walkers that probably would take you 5 hours to get to 2 miles down the road, all this crazy stuff. But then at the end of the day, there's a tram now in Eternia. But we started with this Castle Grayskull that looks so forbidding and foreboding and all that. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, now we're going. You can also have a tourist trap here, like the new Asgard stuff in the new Thor movies and everything. So
for sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an even bigger sucker for the vehicles and play sets than I am the figures, although I love them dearly. Eternia would be very hard for him to pass on it. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Masters Maniac Mexico for sure. It's going to be difficult. That Dragon Walker, I love the Dragon Walker.
So did I.
Vehicle, but it makes no sense.
It's like the bridge layer thing that G.I. Joe had, and I know that's a military vehicle and all that. And there is that kind of, okay, if we can't get across this ravine, we got the Dragon Walker. But it's like, okay, let's call it in. How long is it going to take? Thursday? Like by the time it gets from the palace out here, they might have to make a few stops. We hope there's some hotels along the way. I honestly, I still loved it, though. As a kid, I ate all the vehicles up. I want to say I had almost every vehicle after a certain point, up to a certain point. And that one just had so much charm, and it would actually scare my dog, which made it even more fun for me. Like all of a sudden, it would go around the house, he'd just start barking and chasing it, and I'd just laugh at him all day. So,
yeah, I love that when the Dragon Walker appears in the Filmation cartoon, it's not moving faster than the toy.
I did. That showed you.
Yeah, that's right. They knew how impractical that this method of transportation.
I almost feel like Lou Scheimer did that on purpose. It's like the whole, you want us to put this in? Well, I'm gonna make the kids hate this thing. Like, these kids can walk faster than this. It's the whole, walking both ways uphill and the 2 feet of snow and all that stuff. But yeah, they can walk faster even through that than take a dragon walker to school.
Yes. Oh, now you mentioned the Monstroid, right? Because you were talking about the. Oh, were you talking about
Spidor? That one was one that I
Spidor.
absolutely loved as a kid. That was my favorite. That and Landshark were like my two favorite vehicles for the Evil Warriors. Yeah,
all the way, Team Landshark.
For me, it was definitely Spidor.
Nice.
Because just it was so hulking compared to like every other vehicle that I had at the time. I know later got some bigger ones, but it was just like, you know, you got the Talon Fighter, the Dragon Walker, the Road Ripper, the Attack Track, the Battle Ram. It just seemed like my good guys had all of these crazy vehicles.
Yep.
And for Skeletor, I had Landshark and Roton. And then this giant eclipsing spider that's
exactly.
And that's just how it felt. And I loved that toy. And when I'd kick the little switch on it and it would start walking, oh man.
Yeah, like there's that cover for the Masters of the Universe magazine where it's I think is it Mossman and He-Man, and He-Man's got the battle axe out because Skeletor's coming up over the hill with that. And I'm like, that's what I was playing when I was a kid. It's like he just comes out of nowhere, and there's this nightmare on 8 legs coming after. Well, actually, it wasn't 8, but you know, nightmare spider that was coming after you with freaking motors on it. Yeah, that was amazing.
Such cool stuff. Masters Maniac Mexico is following up on our joking about how slow the Dragon Walker is.
It's so true. I mean, and I lived around the corner from my elementary school. I used to walk to school every day. And yeah, we would have had to leave probably about bedtime for me to make it to school the next day because that thing took forever. But it was cool to watch it go.
It would have to have like a little sleeping compartment for you for overnight stays.
Right.
Did they make a Dragon Walker for Classics? I don't think they did.
No, they did Battle Ram, Wind Raider,
Roton.
They did do the Roton, and then I don't think they did anything. Oh, they did the Talon Fighter, Point Dread.
Yeah, right.
But they never got further than that I can remember.
Which it was kind of a shame because again, I missed the wave on it. By the time I found out about it, they were so many years deep into classics. So looking up at everything that they had made for it, I just was like, wow, this line is really great. I wish I was there at the start. You know, if I could have been there at the start as most of the core characters were coming up, that would have been great. By the time I'm doing it, we're already into obscurity, and I'm looking at paying, you know, almost a third of my check just about at the time for one of the core characters.
What year did you get it? What year did you find out about it?
Oh, I found out about it like 2013, 2014. Okay. So it was towards the end of the run, right when like Super 7 was taken over too.
I knew about it from 2008 when it started.
Yeah.
And every single time I always had financial issues of why I just couldn't pull this off. And the thing that got me where I am right now in my basement with toys behind me is my son being born 6 years ago. When we knew we were going to have a second child, I just started turning into a second child again. And I'm like, I need something to not stress about. I went in and I'm like, oh, Matty Collector's going, it's done. By the end of that year, it's over. I started grabbing what I could off of there and then eBaying He-Man and Skeletor. And the next thing I knew, like my shelves are filled and I'm like, oh God, what did I just do? But I'm just sitting there going at the end of the day going, I can't not look at these things and just have a grin on my face. And then when I got this, my wife was ready to sign papers for divorce because she knew what I paid for it. And this was way after it was released through Matty Collector. And I was like, but you don't get it. It was still in the shipper, complete, not even open. She's like, don't care. I wanted a dishwasher. Okay, I got nothing on that.
Yeah, I can't argue this because as soon as you pull out you were born with 2, then no, you're done.
Yeah.
You and your toys, go.
Yeah. I promised her actually that I could take up residence in there because it's so big, basically. But yeah, the dad bod kind of made it ridiculous after a while.
It would be more like like the buns of a sandwich than a bread sandwich than an actual shelter.
Nobody would want to see what it would look like if I had to take up residence in there. There would be too many people needing psychiatric help. If it'd be like Hancock, what's going on?
Right.
Oh, horrible.
I when I finally got the guts to, when I found out about the classics Grayskull, because I came late to that stuff too. I looked it up and I was like, there's no way I can buy even a used one. So that's when I actually decided to make my own. That's how I got started with the whole building things, because I was like, I can't afford that, and it's just beautiful. I want to make one. So
that's awesome that you can do it. See, I don't have that in me. I draw and I do digital work and stuff and graphic design, but I can't do the building thing at all, and I don't customize. So
here's the thing: like, this is the extent of my customization.
That's mine too, actually.
Before I made Castle Grayskull, I was making paintings and some sculpture, but I didn't have any experience with it. I was just like, I just feel like I need to do this. It was almost like, in Close Encounters of the Third, when he's building the mashed potato mountain. That's how I felt. I was like, I kind of have to do it. And
you were channeling your inner creator, in that way.
Right.
And it works well.
My inner Richard Dreyfuss.
But I'm Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh no.
But in my wife's eyes, she was like looking at me like I was Richard Dreyfuss. And she's like, what's happened to him? He's outside doing this thing. Oh yeah. Now, when Thanos built his Hellscream, he didn't have any idea of what he was doing. Now, Thanos sent me a picture of his Hellscream, which is the anti-Eternia Grayskull, right?
Oh.
He made a Hellscream, and it's really cool. I cannot wait to show. That's right. Hellskull, not
Hellskull. Hellskull,
yeah. But and he says here, I learned a lot though. So
that's awesome.
So and I've never done digital art, and Oz is an expert. I mean, you look at his amazing digital work he's been doing for this show. It's like, and your digital drawings are phenomenal. I have no idea how to enter that territory.
I'm still learning.
Go ahead, Shawn.
No, that's it. I'm still learning. Every day it's like, I should have done this yesterday. Undo, and all this stuff. But
yeah, it's kind of the way it goes. Like, I just within the last 3 years got into doing digital art. I'd always been very pen, pencil, paper. Those were my mediums that I could work with. But going through colored pencils like crazy, doing my art, I was like, there's got to be a cheaper way. And one of the things that always kept me away from trying digital art was, drawing tablets and how much they cost.
Yeah.
I started breaking down how much I was spending on buying big boxes of colored pencils and stuff like that. And, then going and maybe replacing 1 or 2 here and there, but I buy like 4 boxes of the big ones at a time sometimes. And it was just like, this is nuts. Why am I buying all of this when if I have a computer, all I need to do is buy like different paper to print prints of. So one year, my family was asking me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said, a drawing tablet. I want to give it a shot. So started a few months later, and then at a certain point I got into, instead of just drawing digital art, I ended up getting into making memes and doing things like that. So I was doing a Facebook group with a couple of friends. I designed us a logo and everything. And those skills that I learned from that and the programs that I used with that, all those skill sets have actually transferred over to what I do now just for this channel. Or if you guys have seen my Instagram, I've made a couple of memes for some of the other YouTubers as well, which are pretty funny, and they all seem to be taking them pretty well.
So, when we did with Jay from Jay and Rob Toy Show, and who else was on there?
Well, it is the three J's. We got Mega J Retro, Jay Gladfelter from Toy Geeks, and Jay Bartlett, all on. They were on. I believe it was Toy Connections last weekend. Last Sunday they were doing a stream. It just so happened that all three of them were Jay. So everybody started making jokes about, saying Jay in the chat, but not differentiating which Jay they were speaking to.
That's hilarious.
And like I was watching it, and I just said, I feel like this is that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I might have to go ahead and make this.
Yeah.
And somebody in the chat was like, do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I found Hot Toys had done the meme with the different Spider-Men from the movie, because they have Hot Toys of all three of the Spider-Men. So I even managed to make and keep it relevant with going through and making the meme using Hot Toys for all these toy YouTubers. And I got a positive response from everybody who's in that meme back. So
nice.
I think I did a good job with that one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's hilarious. And I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I was aware that the Anti-Eternia concept came from German MOTU audio books.
Yes.
Really, Masters Maniac Mexico. And I've always wanted to get a copy of that. Any of you guys have a copy of that?
I do not know.
Sorry, I don't either. Just real quick.
Yeah.
Someday.
Right. It's one of those things. And I mean, I do speak a little German. I'm quite a bit rusty. And even with my reading skills, like there is one other country in the world that does He-Man probably bigger than the US, and that is Germany.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Even I think it's this weekend, or it's a weekend coming up soon. I've seen that they've got like a Grayskull convention going on over there.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys have seen this. I'll have to get some pictures that we can show off. They are doing posters for Origins that are just like the retro posters from back in the day.
Oh.
They are also doing a He-Man and Skeletor 2-pack that looks just like the old ones that, again, came with an audio cassette.
Yeah.
This has a audio cassette packaged in it, but it is not a cassette. It's actually a USB drive that you flip open from the bottom.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
It's on my Instagram. I just started following the news for this convention because it looks amazing.
Well, I just said, let's go. I'm so down. All right.
Let's do it. Let's
Germany. All right, Shawn, you on board to go to Germany with us?
I actually took German in high school, and I got kicked out more than I actually was in the class. So yeah, let's do it. Why not? I don't remember even how to ask where the bathroom is.
I'll get us through. I'll
okay, yeah, I'll stick to Oz like glue, and then I'm good to go. Real quick, the Anti-Eternia idea I found out through classics. And I did not know about it until all of a sudden there's this black and red He-Man, and I'm like, what is this? And then I researched. And I gotta say, out of any villain in the Masters universe, that character to me is the most chilling. It's the idea they call him the most evil man in the universe, and I'm like, there is no way you can fathom what that means unless you are on the same level mentally as that guy.
Yeah,
and it's like when I read the multiverse book that they did, the miniseries. He was talking way too much to me, and he was doing it like I felt like he should be like freaking Michael Myers in Masters of the Universe, showing up hardly saying a word. What little he says being something that chills you to the bone, and he's just there to kill you. That's it. Like, that to me is evil. That to me is like,
Right.
you know, Darth Vader. Darth Vader doesn't say a whole lot. He just, you know, he does his thing. And so it's just, I've always loved that character after discovering him through that line.
Right.
He's extremely cool. This is Thanos mentioned here. My introduction to the DC Multiverse comic. That was my introduction too.
Okay.
Sure. I want to go back though, and I want to say, Masters Maniac Mexico offered to send a copy. So
Yeah.
Nice.
very, very cool to be Masters Maniac Mexico. It's awesome. That we'll definitely talk about that on the show. And then also, I wanted to go to another comment from Masters Maniac Mexico that he's actually friends with Simon, the poster artist for those Spotted Oz. So that's pretty cool.
That's great. Awesome, Masters.
So now we talked a little bit about digital art briefly, and that was like the perfect transition. But then we got waylaid into Anthony, which
sorry.
Oh, I love that.
That's the greatest part about this show, because like we're all so passionate about Masters that we don't mind really going off on these tangents. And you know, I mean, that's great. It's the dialogue amongst the fans which really brings us all together.
Absolutely.
You know, the tangents are what it's all about. So the reason why Shawn was so enthusiastic about coming on our show today is because he found out we were going to be talking about the CGI He-Man and the Masters of the Universe show that just launched their season 3 on Netflix. And I just want to start off by doing a little screen share here. I absolutely loved the Merman in season 3 that they introduced. I know I'm jumping ahead here, but I just have to say this because I think that season 3 is, for me, where it all came together. I was telling Shawn at the beginning of the show before we came on, I was like, I was hesitant about season 1 and season 2. There were things that were happening that I was like, it was cringeworthy for me as a 45-year-old man. But then when I watched how that all came together in season 3, and we had a few characters sort of reintroduced to us from the past, Merman as an example, and then the sort of immersive action paralleling more frequently the humor, so it was more of like it all kind of made sense for me. Like, and then I also mentioned to Shawn, I'm saying that because I'm sorry to Shawn, I'm repeating myself, but it clicked for me watching season 3 why the show is so good and why I didn't really like certain aspects of the first 2 seasons, because Filmation's just like that too, and this is a show for kids. And anyways, this Merman here is phenomenal, and I really love this character. Before we start talking about the show, I just want to know what you guys thought about Merman.
Shawn, do you want to go ahead and
Merman for me has always been one of those characters that he never was. I know he was like a top 3 in the like, okay, Skeletor, Beastman, Merman typically to a lot of people, but he never really registered to me like Trapjaw or Triclops or somebody else or Too Bad even, to be honest. But I really, really loved what they did with him here, because they gave him, no pun intended, but they gave him a lot of depth that I didn't expect, because he's never been written that way.
Yeah.
So, I give them huge kudos, because I'm like, man, this is like, there's a lot of things about this show where it's like they're giving these different takes on these characters to make me look at them in a new way and go, this is great, because it's making me appreciate something that for 40 years I've never really been excited about. That's nuts, and
yeah.
So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and kind of the same way with that, like Merman did not resonate with me when I was a kid. I thought his accessory, that little sword with the coral, I thought that was kind of interesting. But to me, like, the most interesting part about it was like the bone handle of it.
Agree. No, I agree. I understand. I agree with that completely.
Right. Like, I could not resonate with Merman overall, which is funny because Stinkor, who was the same exact sculpt with the Mechanic armor, for some reason I like wanted that figure. And maybe it was because, again, I told the tale in a previous episode about that, how my dad kept Stinkor for himself as opposed to letting me have it, because he did not want my room smelling of patchouli, I'm guessing. He never explained himself, but
it brought back memories, maybe.
I got no idea, but I was not allowed to have Stinkor, basically. So again, like, the Merman just never did click with me, and I love it. I love seeing the two side by side now. I think it's great.
I'd put it up there for anybody. I mean, I know there are some folks that watch our show because they know you, they know me, and
That's
they
right.
may not be as familiar with the characters. So I just want to give an example.
Yeah, and Merman, he's the same exact sculpt as Stinkor. So there was no real reason why I should have liked Stinkor more than Merman, other than, FOMO as a child, which we didn't even have a name for it back then. So in the 2000X series, the way they wrote Merman, and it's funny, if you've ever seen it on DVD and you listen to the commentary from the very first episode, they go and they talk about kind of the hierarchy of Skeletor's villains. And they go into this introduction of the villains all coming into Skeletor's lair to hear about his plan to break through the wall. Mm-hmm. If you guys have not seen that episode, Mattel has it up right now on their YouTube channel. Mattel Action, I believe it's called, because they've been doing all of the 2000X series. The literal introduction they do as each character comes on screen is his hierarchy. And Merman's at the bottom. He shows up last. It's quite literally Evelyn, Beastman, Triclops, Trapjaw, Whiplash, Clawful, and then Merman.
Yeah.
And they talk in the commentary of that episode and let you know that's their hierarchy of kind of power / intelligence within the mix. So you kind of get an idea of who Skeletor really goes to get stuff done, and then who he just has on board because they're powerful.
Yeah.
So Merman was the lowest ranking on that. And then I saw this figure and I thought, wow, that is a really cool design for somebody they have not introduced yet. Mm-hmm. And with seeing how they've introduced the other characters within this CGI Masterverse, I was interested to see what they did with him. And I got to say, it's the most in-depth look we've ever had at Merman. And, like, honestly, even his brief appearance in Revelations actually sold me on him as more of an important character than any previous iteration we'd already seen of him. Like, you see him with several other of, not exactly his species, but several other of people under his kingdom. Like, it actually made me feel like he was a power on Eternia to be reckoned with, which, again, you never felt that about him before. At least I never did. And then this version of him kind of just, it made that even better, in a way. And like you guys are saying about CGI, the series altogether, and Skele Vader, I think you probably hit it right on the head. When I first found out that we were not getting just Kevin Smith's Revelations on Netflix, but we were getting another He-Man, I was like, okay. And then pictures leaked of the toys, and we saw He-Man and Battle Cat for this first time. I was not sold on the animation of them. I was like, whoa. But I realized the look of it is exactly what the look of the old one was. It was to sell toys to kids. And as soon as I brought my mentality to that level, this is a show to introduce new kids, a new generation of young kids to Masters of the Universe. I dropped every other expectation I had for what this show should be.
Yeah.
And that helped me, because you see, it doesn't get nearly the hate that Revelations got with everything from Kevin Smith's storytelling to all of that. It did not get that hate. And this goes so much further in another direction than even Kevin Smith's did. But I think everybody was able to accept that this is a new cartoon for new kids. This is not meant for us, the 40-something-year-olds who grew up with this when we were kids.
Yet here we are.
That's totally enamored with this CGI show meant for kids like younger than my son's age a little bit, even, you know. And I was over at my buddy's house when the first season hit. Well, actually, I watched it here by myself first and then went over to his house and watched the whole series with him, because we had just got done watching Revelations not too much before that. And we watched that first season together. And his teenage son got up and walked out of the room kind of bored. And here he and I were still watching this, laughing and enjoying this campy He-Man again.
Well, it's definitely not written for teenagers, right?
No, gosh.
It's written for very young people and for us who know those characters. So there is that sort of gap. It's not really going to appeal to any teenagers today. That's a generalized statement. I'm sure there's some really cool teens out there that are watching the show and enjoying it. But I think that I want to say this really quick. I kind of get the impression that neither one of you guys were huge on Merman when you were younger. He was one of my favorites, and I always wanted him to be special, like. And then when 2000X came out, and he was not special. He was special in the other sense of the word.
Yeah.
And even Stinkor, who also was one of my favorites as a kid, like Stinkor was super cool in the 2000X show. Like, right character. And to see Merman finally, like you said, Oz, in Revelation, Merman gets a kind of moment where he seems like he could be badass, but like he doesn't get much of a chance to show it. But in this in season 3 of this show, it's amazing. Like he only has a few lines, but they're powerful, and he's talking about suppression and unity and diaspora, and he's speaking using sonar, and his eyes are just so cool. I mean, this guy's like, this is a complicated and exciting character. I was just like riveted.
Exactly.
It was so interesting seeing how they were able to add depth to a character that has never had it before. And they really, really did it. I mean, you know, again, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen season 3 yet. He's going toe-to-toe with every single one of the masters in this. Which, again, he was always like that weak link. Like, it seemed like almost anybody could just show up and stare at him, and he would kind of run away unless he had some giant fish come in and help him out in the fight. But in here, they gave him a level of skill. And they really, really made him a force of nature. Like, the sea is a very turbulent and strong, powerful force of nature. And it felt like they finally gave that recognition to Merman as being king of the seas. He
Yeah.
is a force to be reckoned with in the CGI.
Definitely.
Did you guys feel like I wanted to point this comment out from Thanos Copter, and I should say for anybody that's watching that hasn't watched season 3, I forgot to say this at the beginning that we are going to be talking spoilers. So if you haven't watched it yet, many apologies. We've already spoiled a few things, but definitely go watch it. So one of the things that that Oz and I have sort of like bonded over is the sword and sorcery aspect of the mini comics Masters of the Universe that I fell in love with as a kid, that I missed from the Filmation cartoon, that I feel we got a little bit more in Revelation, but not a lot. We got a little bit more of it in 2000X, but not a lot. So I feel like we've been missing sort of the sword and sorcery since the sword and sorcery, by definition of sword and sorcery,
Right.
in the early mini comics. What are your guys' feelings about this? And does tech kind of does technology kind of nullify the sword and sorcery aspect of Masters of the Universe? Has it over the years?
I came to the line because of the sword and sorcery. The Rudy Obrero paintings on the box art,
Yes.
made me so enamored with the toys and the line, because I can't think of a single line in the 80s that had this savage, desolate looking kind of planet where it was like your imagination can run wild on this battlefield. But by the way, there's this giant green tiger and a blonde dude with a battle axe going into battle, and there's this dude with a hood and a skull, and they're just going head to head, and you're like, what else is in the darkness? And they're just like, we don't know.
Inside the cat.
What's in the mystery of the castle, the mystery of what's in the darkness of this world that they painted on all the battle ram box art, the Wind Raider box art, and all that. And for me, that was a huge selling point, because it really tapped into the primal aspect of just it's almost the idea of using He-Man as the thing, the avatar and the hero to fight any nightmarish thing that you could think of. And he's there with the battle axe and power sword, like, I got this. And he takes care of anything that scares you. Because that's what the villain should have been. These nightmarish concoctions coming out of that darkness to destroy He-Man. So I completely agree. And that's why I smiled when you said that. Filmation went so far in a different direction from the box art and the feeling of like Castle Grayskull's box art and everything, that when I was a kid, I kind of threw my hands up and I'm like, well, I don't mind this version, but when do I get the version where it's scary?
Yeah.
Where is Skeletor scary? Where is Beastman going to be something to make me wet my pants when he shows up on the screen?
Yeah.
And we got, in my opinion, 2000X made better on that promise in a lot of ways, because it felt more adult. It felt more, they wanted to enrich the world and give you all sorts of different, like a mythology, the ancient relics, and it really gave you, and even the Grayskull aspect. That was something though, and I'm like, there's actually a dude that the castle's named after. It's not just because it's a skull face. It's actually a castle based on a King Grayskull. How cool is that?
Yeah.
The episode, personally, I was like, he's just He-Man with braids. Okay. But, refining it throughout Revelation and stuff, I actually feel, and even the CGI show in season 3, I kind of dig that they're removing it from that.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree completely. Like the sword and sorcery was always first and foremost. But in the CGI case, what I will say is, yes, that isn't prevalent, and it's way more tech-based and stuff like that. But there is a little bit of that mystery of, there's magic still, even though there's tech, and there's that mystery behind that. There is the mystery of the ancient history leading up to now, the Snake Man, King Grayskull, using the Havoc power, and the Havoc and the dual Grayskull power and stuff.
Yeah.
So some of those things kind of fill that gap that I've always wanted. But the main thing for me was story.
Yes.
storytelling. Are you going to tell a story that to me is worth sitting through? 12 episodes, 8 episodes. And every time I sit through that show, I'm just sitting there going, it's just brilliant in a lot of ways. It doesn't hit everything. Your concerns about the dancing or the birthday episode, I completely get that. I'm never gonna fight for those episodes the way that I'm sure some could. But for me, at the end of the day, this is telling a story to refresh your point of view of a line that we thought we knew chapter and verse of for 40 years.
Yeah.
And they're telling it in such a really interesting way that I'm so much more sucked into this show than I am Revelation, because I don't know what to expect here. I have no idea. Like when it got to the end of season 3, I was sitting there going, no freaking way they can do that. Yes, they can, because it's their own thing.
Yeah.
And what's really great about the end of that, I mean, the very last moment where you're like, no freaking way.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like, why didn't I think of that before?
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes sense. The bat symbols and also, there's a big hint at that in Revelation too.
Yeah.
The sorcerer, when Evil Lynn is the sorceress of Grayskull briefly, their outfit is totally Hordak, and so it just made so much sense. I want to go back and comment a little bit really quick and say GamerBud also was hoping that they would dive into some new adventures-based themes and looks, and I kind of feel like they are in a way, because there's all the tech and everything feels like a nod to New Adventures in a way. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at the Filmation series, there was a little bit of tech.
Yeah.
I mean, the vehicles, of course, were very technology-driven and everything like that. They had technology in Man-at-Arms Lab when you would see that kind of thing. But it seemed like once you left Eternos Palace, it was very much more of a wasteland type.
Yes.
Those static painted backgrounds were very kind of wastelandish.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get to New Adventures, everything was technology driven as it went into the 90s. I really feel they took the majority of the sorcery out of it because we were taking He-Man to space.
Yeah.
In order to get to space, you need technology.
Yes.
With the new CGI show, it feels like they've already incorporated all of that technology, but they have found a way to make it make sense that it stems from a sword and sorcery perspective.
Yeah.
Their technology exists because that magic is its power source.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look at everything they do, any of the technology driven stuff within the CGI series, it's always fueled by some magical energy. You don't see like electricity, or like they don't explain like these propelled vehicles are propelled by combustion engines or maglev. It really just looks like they're all zipping around on magical energy.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that with, again, they've got Havoc energy. They've even gone back to primordial Havoc energy. And then, the power of Grayskull. So, like, you have all of this magical energy fueling everything within this new version of Eternia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on board with that. I actually can buy that. I'm good with it.
Yeah. The vehicles and the ships in the CGI show really remind me a lot of New Adventures. And New Adventures sort of like explored that a little bit more. How would people get around in space? And it's funny because when you were talking about the sort of the magical aspect of the technology in the CGI show, I just kept getting the image of the Wind Raider and the Roton and the Dragon Walker and the attack track from the Filmation show. And I just keep thinking that technology is really like Volkswagen bugs and buses.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are having leapt from that into outer space through New Adventures, into a more and into a more advanced tech in the 2000X series, and especially that in Revelation. And then this is sort of like, this show I feel like is binding the magic to the technology in a more, like you said, in a way that we can sort of accept.
Mm-hmm.
You used the word explaining when you were talking about the way that works. That, I forget, did you say it didn't need to be explained? I forget what it was. And Shawn, you mentioned something about this too. I'm not going to even try to paraphrase, but there's a lot not said in the CGI show, and that really works for me. There was a lot of explaining in the Revelation show, and a lot of people complained about it, and I accepted it at first, and I was like, it's part of the storytelling, and actually, GamerBud said CGI has more world building, more episodes. Revelation is more of a short story with characters.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of explaining happening in Revelation, and in CGI, there's moments where I'm like, what is going on here? It's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, in my opinion. Like, it just, you never know what's going to come at you, and even when you think you know the score, like WebStore shows up.
Yes,
WebStore is not a henchman of Skeletor's. WebStore is his own person out there doing his own thing, and he's not even fighting the heroes. He actually helps. Who would have thought? I mean, that's the craziest thing.
Yeah,
Muscatara or Mosquitar, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
It's like, here, a character that's been, was all about the Horde. This Horde member. I don't know how you guys feel about him being like a core Horde member. I always felt like he was like this kind of assassin for Hordak. Like, you only break him out when you seriously need it. And it's kind of funny because with the new character, they kind of went that route a little bit, where she's like this bounty hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was great. And just what new lore for this kind of, again, more obscure character of the mythos, but to bring them in, give them this whole new flashback. And I can't be angry about any of it. Like, like so many fans rage when they change up stuff like that. Like, not only is she not like a Horde member, but it's a her as opposed to a he.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear any bashing at all of any of the gender flips they've done in this one. Man-at-Arms was a pupil of Cronus.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from?
I've heard some people complain about Ram Mam.
Okay, I hadn't seen too much of it, which I was very kind of happy about. But I mean, if you've seen some, I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure people are.
It exists, and I think that it's just because people, the only people complaining are people our age who are really attached to Ram Man and Mosquitor, and to see them changed. I mean, really, the characters changed. I mean, Ram Man is really smart and intuitive, and Ram Man was a little bit dense, and and so it's a different character. Man-at-Arms is a different character.
That's right.
And it's hard. I get why that's a hard pill to swallow for some people. Oh yeah, GamerBud, Triclops being a robot that needs a host. I mean,
yeah,
that was brilliant, and I think it was cool.
Absolutely.
Earlier said Manny Faces was awesome too. Characters were just fantastic. The Triclops, I kind of felt for Triclops in season 3.
Yeah.
I
mean, just a little robot, and I felt for him more than I did Orko. But let's get into that.
Well, I did want to say I noticed Hillian Dread popped up in the chat, and he's bringing up a topic that we have not touched on. And I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was that bit of news this week from Toy Habits where they've discovered that Origins 2-pack on Amazon, placeholder for it, where it's going to be available, no price. But I kept wondering why they kept calling it the Ground Ripper in Pixel Dan's video. And they've definitely changed the name to Ground Ripper is what they're going to be calling it from here on out. I'm not sure why, but thank you for pointing that out. That was some news that came out just within the last couple of days here.
And also, thanks for popping in, Hillian Dread. Good to see you. Now, does anybody know why they made that change? I heard it was something to do with copyright. Someone else has claimed Road Ripper for something else.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it is. It's one of those rights issues again, where Road Ripper was their original name, and then like they couldn't call Ratlore for 2000X on the toy because somebody else had the copyrights for Ratlore at the time, so they had to call him the General. And it's one of those things that we just have to kind of accept and deal with, that this is now they're going to be calling it the Ground Ripper. But we all know what the vehicle's called.
Well, in classics they had to call Ninja or Ninja Warrior.
Yeah,
and so it's like anybody who collected classics, that's Ninja. Nobody calls it that. Same with if somebody says Ground Ripper, I'm gonna go, no, Road Ripper. Get off my lawn. I'm old. Leave me alone. I don't want to change my ways now. But and that's funny.
So
for me,
willing to
loving
accept
that show.
change with CGI, but no, not my.
There are certain titles that I will not change. Like I'm not going to try to worry about if I'm calling a vehicle the right name when I know it's never going to be offended unless it's the attack track from Filmation. But otherwise it's like, no, Road Ripper, I'm good. Just because you have trademark issues, that's your thing. So.
Welcome, Christian, for joining us. Just want to say we've got a lot of Germany happening tonight, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's absolutely great. I'm loving it. It's got some more in the chat there I'm trying to read and remember.
Name it what you want. My head canon is stronger than your copyright laws.
Gamer bud. That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
On that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Orko, not Orko, because when I found out that, come on guys, help me out. What's the name of the actor from The Princess Bride?
Wallace Shawn.
Shawn. When they cast Wallace Shawn for Orko, I know what my feelings are. What were your feelings?
It is one of those moments of this is either going to be absolutely amazing or it's going to fall on its face.
I was a little but I think it was really good.
Yeah, like it definitely it worked out perfectly, better than anything I could have thought of with it. I just wish maybe we threw an inconceivable in there a little bit.
Yeah, they gave.
I was waiting for that.
They gave Merman his oh my, but they didn't do an inconceivable. I was like, okay,
right.
It was definitely a surprise because, like, Wallace Shawn, I figured would be even more like energetic. I was doing the Princess Bride the way he would have done the dialogue in my head, listening to it. And he was a lot more of a low-key and kind of sad Orko in this because he knew he messed up and he didn't want to face up to his mistakes and stuff. I'll give Revelation cred though. Like Griffin Newman on that one just blew my mind that what he brought to that. It's like I like Wallace Shawn, but I'm actually surprised. Tom, is it Tom Kenny? Or no?
Yeah, the SpongeBob.
I got it right. Yeah, SpongeBob. I really like his take on just the character that they have on the show. So but it was still cool. It's like now we have this is the real Orko the Great, because I know there were people that were upset by it's a robot Orko and all, and he had the Jetson sounds to float around and all. It's like I didn't mind it. I thought it was fun, and now we got the real one, so you're good to go one way or the other.
I love Wallace Shawn doing the old school Orko, and I was really happy that he sort of played it subtle, and it's like a contemplative Orko. But I do have to say that Griffin Newman is by far the best Orko. I just think that he rocked that role. And Griffin, if you're listening, don't forget I gave you that Orko painting at PowerCon.
Well, never in my life would I've expected to have Orko make me tear up until I watched Revelation, and that. When he does the please Teela, take me on one last adventure, I'm just sitting there and my chin is shaking. My kids are like, Dad, are you okay? Like, he needs to go on one more adventure, guys. Just let him go on his adventure. I'm not crying. You're crying. I'm not crying. You're crying. Go talk to your mom.
I feel like there's been a lot of mixed feelings about Orko over the years, and just like you guys mentioned too, mixed feelings about Merman too. He's kind of like sort of throwaway villain at times, and Orko is always like the comic relief. And for both of these characters to have been given some emotional weight and proper characterizations that go beyond what we see on the surface or what we've seen on the surface for Revelation and the CGI show, like amazing. It makes me happy that I have the tattoo.
Nice.
Nice.
I'll just say, when I was a kid, the first episode, Diamond Ray of Disappearance, when that premiered, and I was running home from kindergarten to watch that first episode because I really wanted to see what this cartoon was going to be like. And all of a sudden, they go, only 3 others share this secret. Our friends, the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, and Orko. I literally was like Lubbock in the '87 movie. What the hell is that? Like, I'm like, what is this? He's never been in anything. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, what is this all about? And when I was a kid, I kept going like, Orko is just there to make. It's like he's supposed to be me in the world, but that bugged me. It was like I'm not there for me to be in the world. I'm there to watch He-Man do crazy adventures and fight these crazy monsters and stuff. But over time, I could see why, because he is a bit more of like the heart of Masters in that way. He's carried that torch the way that everybody else has their role, but Orko kind of is that not gatekeeper, but the torchbearer for each generation to invite a new generation in some ways. And so in that way, I've embraced him. But when I first saw it and I was expecting Alcala mini comics, and all of a sudden here's Orko, I was like,
who is this guy?
It was, it's like, I don't know who you are. You don't. It's like, your name isn't Teela. What's going on with this? So
totally. I had the same feeling too when I first saw the cartoon. I was like, this guy's just annoying me. Like, where? but I soon grew to love him. Maniac Mexico mentioned that Orko audiobooks, therefore a popular character. He saved the day more than one time. I just love him. Yeah, we love him too. It's really great to see. What's great about these new shows coming out is that we get to see love given to characters and characters be developed that never got to be developed, like Tuvar and Badra in the CGI show. What do you guys think about those guys? We haven't even seen them become too bad yet, or that may never even happen. But what do you think about that?
I'm actually loving that more and more. It's like if you've seen the 2000X, you know who Tuva and Badra are, kind of thing. You know that they are going to become too bad. As soon as I saw one blue and one purple guy, I knew what was coming.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
but they're not delivering it, which I think is outstanding because
Yes.
it's like it gives us something to look forward to still. Like we
Mhm.
know that more is on the way, kind of thing. And I'm not. Somebody joined our show last week and was saying something about the fact that they had heard the CGI show was canceled. And so I got to admit, after the show, I went deep diving. And when I deep dive, I will come up with anything that has been mentioned on the internet about this show being canceled.
Mhm.
And I saw nothing from any source anywhere other than a couple of mentions of people hoping they don't cancel the show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things. Like I don't know where they heard that, or maybe they were just trying to stir the pot a little bit. But there is so much more story to tell in this CGI version.
Absolutely.
And
And
they
that,
have to have plans for a lot more coming down the line.
yeah, and the fact that Moss Man doesn't even show up in season 3, unless somehow I missed it, but I watched those episodes.
He didn't, but there is a book that came out before season 3 aired that is his introduction in that, apparently.
Okay.
So I don't know why. I was kind of shocked too. I was like, okay, so they're using the book as the introduction here, but that also before season 3 hit, I was like, oh, Mossman's gonna show up, and then after season 3, I'm like, well, now we need season 4 because I really want Mossman to show up.
Yeah, I want Moss Man. I need more of this really vampiric looking Hordak.
Oh, he's great.
There's just so much that I need from this series, and I don't even know what it is. I just want more of it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I don't know if they're going to put Hordak in the live action movie, but the CGI show convinced me that Gary Oldman has to play Hordak. This CGI Hordak really reminded me of Gary Oldman.
I
Perhaps
could see that.
because he played Dracula, but
Mhm.
I think that if the powers that be are listening, we should have Gary Oldman play Hordak.
I'd love to see that, or maybe have him voice him in an upcoming show.
Yeah,
Something. But we definitely, like, there's just so much more story that I need to see in this different Eternia. I don't want to say new Eternia because I don't want people to get confused with Masterverse and their line of new Eternia, which I can't go on enough about how much I love those figures with the concepts and all.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the great thing about this time that we're in right now with Masters of the Universe is we have so many different versions of what's out there now. Shawn, again, you're big into the collection of the classics,
Mhm.
which was a phenomenal time to be involved, especially when it was so underground.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a mainstream on the shelves market.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like you got into it at this time where it was really, you had to be in the know to get it. And that was really cool.
It was
we've
my
got it.
happy spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's everywhere and I love seeing it in stores. I love having new versions of the media to share with my friends and of course with my son. He really enjoys playing with He-Man with his dad. He enjoys watching the shows with his dad. It's such an amazing time to be a fan of Masters of the Universe. And yeah, I definitely wish I had known more about classics when it was out, because if I could have financially afforded to dive into that, I would have.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I look at it, the CGI show in particular, is how often do we get a reboot of Batman? How often do we get a reboot of Superman, Spider-Man? I mean, we've seen it just now. We've had, in the span of 20 years, we've already had 3 different Spider-Man franchises out. And we've had how many Batman since 1989, and that becoming such a global phenomenon again. And, it's like each version does its own thing, and it doesn't have to adhere to being, this is chapter and verse. Because here's the problem with that for me is, if you're just going to follow the same beats, what the heck is the point of having a new version? There isn't. It just, you're going to just keep hitting the same things. Like I'd rather watch Smallville than watch Man of Steel, even though I know there are people that enjoy the Snyderverse. But I'd rather see a version where it's building the character to a certain place, which is what the CGI show, I feel, is really trying to do, versus here's a movie and we might get it right in 2 hours. Let's hope so, And the thing is, it also shows the spirit behind the brand and the spirit of what we've known for 40 years, but it also shows you can tell new tales within what we know and keep us old fans actually invested in it if you give it a chance. I can understand visually why it might not be given a chance by some people. I'm not going to fight people and try, you got to like it because I do. I'm not going to do that.
Right, no.
But I am somebody who's out there going, if you just give it a chance, if you get past the hands being bigger than the head animation and the proportions in the body, but you actually watch it for the story, you might be really impressed with what this series is doing to make you actually love these characters again in a whole new way.
Yeah. And speaking from the position of somebody who was taken aback by the first season and not quite on board. There were things happening that I was really excited about, but every once in a while something would pop up that would just make me like cringe. It's those things will become their own reward later on. It's not like we're trying to sell you all on watching the show, but it's definitely worth it. And I still, to this day, despise the theme song, but I would watch the show. I would just skip the theme song. I skip the theme song every single time. I just cannot get on board with it. It is not, it just doesn't work for me. But everything else works.
My kids actually cheer and dance to it when that theme comes on, which is it makes me think of every time Filmation started, that theme song kicking in always made me feel like I could lift a mountain that afternoon. And then when they had the moment in season 1 where all of a sudden everybody started saying by the power of Grayskull and getting their own skill set of powers from Grayskull, my kids lost their minds because I didn't even know it was going to go there. So all of a sudden, when Teela all of a sudden becomes the sorceress and you have like the Zor spirit form eclipse her, and I was like, they're doing what? And it's like, this is the kind of stuff where I'm like, I didn't see it coming. Thank God they did it, because now I'm like, that was great too. It isn't what we grew up with, but hey, it's doing something. It doesn't have to be, exactly. You can do something that isn't constrained, and that's part of why I like it, is the canon is its own thing. So I can't sit there and go, well, an episode, da-da-da-da, you said this, and now it's wrong, or whatever. No, it's awesome for that reason. And just real quick, because I know I ran a bunch, but that was part of the thing for me with Revelation, because Kevin Smith kept saying, oh, it's going to be like it's the next episode of Filmation.
Yeah.
And when I watched Revelation, I'm like, this isn't the next episode of Filmation starting off, because we have different character, like the characters themselves, they felt like it's their own thing. There were elements to feel like it was tethered, but it never felt like these were the characters we grew up with. And part of why I have less, like for the story at least, less interest in that one is the fact that I feel like it's like when I was a kid and I picked up a comic book at issue 258 and I'm reading it and I don't know 257 forward, but I'm reading it from then on and I'm like, but this feels like a show that has a whole bunch of history that I'll never get to see. At least with the CGI show, it started and it's going with a story it wants to tell, and it's not using something else as a placeholder to say, well, you can get into it if you watch Filmation, but we're doing this now. And I can understand it because the fans love Filmation, and the fans are, it's like that was such a huge core of Masters. But there is that part of me that's like, I kind of wish it did its own thing and just stood on its own feet like CGI, and then we might have gotten an even more compelling mythos for that cartoon, just like CGI is doing here.
Yeah, if Doc Brown showed up at the door and said, "Okay, go back in time and change one little thing," I would go back in time and just mute Kevin Smith when he said that, because
Yeah.
if none of us heard him say that, and we watched Revelation blind,
Mm-hmm.
we would have all of us would have loved it and loved the approach, even though it's taking heavily from Filmation and from the toys and all that stuff. We would have had less of a high expectation. I just want to point out what Gamer Bud said, going back to when I was talking about the theme song. So what you're saying is the SKELE VADER channel theme needs to be in the tune of the CGI show. Hey, if any of you want to do that, I will totally accept it and use it. That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say, my skill set is not musically inclined. So, I mean, I keep getting us logos and awesome looking crap. I can't compose to write us a theme song for the channel. I'm sorry.
I can probably write something on my guitar, but it won't. The ability to make something sound like something else has never been in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. I will agree with you completely that, sure, I have problems with what Kevin Smith said we should expect from Revelations.
Mm-hmm.
However, overall, I do like what was brought to the table with it.
Yeah.
It was definitely a more mature version of He-Man than what we had seen. It was more appeasing to me as an adult that we had a continuous flowing story. Although, again, it does not pick up where Filmation left off.
No, not at all.
Not even close.
But I appreciate the flowing story. I always
Right.
am that, like ever since 2000X, where here's your story arc, that's my happy spot. Give me more of that. And they did do it there.
Yeah.
That's right. I want a story. I want to explore the lore and mythos that, like we were talking about earlier with the box art and everything that this showed. I want story about this. I want to delve into this. And that's something we had hints of within Filmation.
Mm-hmm.
But they were all such singly contained stories with very little carryover from episode to episode. You might have a character come back and reoccur, and they might mention what happened in a previous episode with that, but there was no continuing story. But again, we were watching 20-minute toy commercials.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't watching an overarching story with mythos. We were watching a 20-minute toy commercial.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing that I liked about the two-parter for House of Shakoti, I always use that as my go-to for Filmation, but I love it for that reason.
Yeah.
Here's one episode where I had to show up the next day, I needed to know what happened, and I wish they did more of it on the show. And unfortunately, that was the only time, other than when they put the Secret of the Sword as a multi-day thing for a week. But
it was a week-long experience to introduce that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You could probably line up all the Dragon episodes where Granomir appears, and they can all be like this epic story. Mm-hmm. But you're right. I mean, it's like we didn't really have any continuity that was as substantial as what we're getting now in these shows. So, Gamer Bud, there's a full version of the CGI theme song.
Yep.
and now I feel like I need to listen to it at some point.
At some point.
It has rapping in it.
But it has rapping?
There's rap in it, yes.
Okay, I can't. I'm sorry. I like rap. Don't get me wrong. In fact, I'm a huge fan of rap from the moment it was invented to where we are today. But I'm sorry, I can't. If there's rap happening in the CGI theme song, I don't know if I can get on board with that.
That's why they only put the chorus in it, because the rapping part happens right after that. And even if that was in the show, I would have probably been like, I got to turn this off. Like, why are they doing this? And then I would have missed out on the show.
That reminds me of the 90s a lot. Like, you know, rap showed up in everything in the 90s, and maybe it's a nod to that.
T-U-R-T-L-E. T-U-R-T-L-E.
The rap everybody forgets about because Vanilla Ice didn't do it.
Well, you know, the thing that gets me is that always gave me a bad taste, because I love that Raphael's the leader of the group. I'm like, for shame. That's horrible.
Oh, wait, here we go. Masters Maniac Mexico. It's groovy. I love it. All right.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I see Thanos Copters put a couple of comments in about some shows just based from the toy perspective of things.
I would love a new Eternia show, Thanos Copter. I put it up there, and I'm sorry we didn't get to it, but yeah, I would love a new Eternia show.
Agreed.
I think that would be great. So again, make it a little bit more mature, but
yes,
maybe not quite really with Viking, He-Man, and Barbarian Skeletor, it kind of needs to hit that maturity level of a Conan the Barbarian style.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. I think that would be a neat place to delve into. And again, like, you know, when you look at the Masterverse toys, those toys are not made to sell for the kids' range.
Nope.
Masterverse is made for us, the adult collector.
You can take it into Fire and Ice territory if it was a show. It would be amazing.
Speaking of Fire and Ice, I've been doing some deep diving into the artwork for a possible topic on another episode of Toy Frenzy. And I remember I'd brought up that Wundar, that back box art for that, and how I thought that was also a Frazetta poster kind of thing that they had translated over. And it wasn't. It is an artist, Justin Sweet. And it was a Fire and Ice painting that he did.
That clicks for me. That clicks for me.
Nice.
I'll send it over to you. I found it.
We should do an episode on all the influences.
I think that would be great. Absolutely. And it's funny you should bring that up, because I've been saving a lot of pictures.
That's good.
I was gonna say, I know this show we kind of had our topics planned out, and next show we definitely have our topics planned out. So maybe from the next one after that, we might dive into this art, because the art surrounding Masters of the Universe from its inception to now, is always been absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And Gunga saying he'd like to see an anime version too. It's funny you should mention that. I know last week my sister jumped into the chat and was chatting with us. I was talking with her earlier this week. You know, as SKELE VADER knows, I was trying to get all the pictures and stuff. And she brought up the fact that, like, the Revelation she felt was very anime style.
Yeah. That company, what's the name of the animation group again?
Powerhouse Studios.
Powerhouse. They're very influenced by anime. So Ganga, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but go watch Revelation. There's a lot of anime influence in that.
Yeah.
It's
especially when it comes to the fight scenes and how they're all drawn out.
Yes, there's a lot of that zooming, like static figure with the zooming background, anime style fight scenes. It's not like you don't have that super stylized facial design on the characters.
Right.
You get in anime, but there's a lot of influence there. which I was a little bit like, I have respect for anime, but I was a little, when I found out that Powerhouse, because I'd seen Castlevania, a few Castlevania episodes before, and I was like, I don't know, is this gonna work? So, but it worked. It worked, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Gonga, I haven't seen it. I'm barely on it. So Gonga has voiced to me before that he's sort of at the beginning stages of re-experiencing all this master stuff. So, so that's cool. The last fight scene, the second half, is definitely an anime style fight when He-Man is wrecking face on Battle Cat when he takes out the Shadow Dragon. Yeah, definitely. So when he slices that dragon in half, or that chops his head off, I can't remember what it is exactly, but that's definitely anime style.
Well, when I will have to say, it's the moment he hits the battlefield for that final battle, and like, it was very, very awesome to me seeing him lead the charge, turn the fight against all those forces that Scareglow had brought, or God Evil Lyn had raised from the dead. It sent chills watching me, seeing that, like when he tells everybody to line up behind him, says find a safe spot, and they're like, there is no safe spot. He says, yeah, there is, right back here, and just
so cool.
Goes off. It's like, this is the He-Man I've waited 40 some years for.
Amen. That literally, that line made me go, they just gave me the version of He-Man that was in the dark at the Rudy Obrera paintings. Yeah. That was the version of him, like when I thought of, if I landed on Eternia and Beastman was charging me, then all of a sudden He-Man would just get in front and punch him right in the face and be like, you did it right there. It reminded me of Superman when he saves Lois Lane in the Superman movie. Who are you? A friend. And they just fly. It's that whole thing. It's like,
right.
Yeah. He's like, he's for us. This is great.
Yeah, that was definitely it. That was the moment, like, where I felt, if you hadn't enjoyed Revelation so far, this is the He-Man you've always wanted to see.
Yes.
And I hope at that point, like, everybody was just kind of like, okay, the journey has been worth the wait for this moment. Not just an epic battle of He-Man versus Skeletor, but He-Man taking on all the evil, forces at once, basically.
Yeah.
And encouraging everybody else to follow him.
Exactly.
All the toys getting an off. So both, and I know I've said this before, but both the CGI show and and Revelation are putting on the screen what Filmation didn't give me, which was the experience that I was having out in the backyard playing with figures and making up the stories that went with the figures. And the stories got crazy sometimes, and they got weird sometimes, and they got scary sometimes, and Filmation never gave that to me, which was kind of a gift, because I could still go out and play with my toys and not have to refer to Filmation at all. But watching Revelation and watching CGI show, I feel like they are, the play is there.
Mm-hmm.
The drama that we would bring to our toys as kids is on the screen finally, and that's awesome.
The closest to the Revelation battle that I ever saw was 2000X, The Last Stand.
Yeah.
That episode was the one where, like, the Council of Evil Part 1 and Part 2 at the end of Season 1, and then The Last Stand in Season 2 opener. Those are still my absolute favorites of that whole entire series, for the fact that they are doing it like I played. And like, when you have that moment where He-Man, like, I love how Adam's trying to get the power sword back. He can't get the sword back. And it's him, and it's like Skeletor's literally pulling the drawbridge of Grayskull down. And Orko's like, I found your sword. And that was like the first transformation where when he did it, I'm like, yeah, on that show. Because up until that point, I hated that transformation, but that was that moment of truth thing in the story. And then when you have him come up there and you not only have all of Skeletor's minions, but you also have the Council of Evil that he created along with 3 freaking giants. And He-Man just everybody. When I was in my early 20s watching that, I was just blown away. And then this at the end of Revelation, I'm like, this is how I played too. Like he would be charging into battle. I still even like that part. His mom's flying the Talon fighter, and he lands on the Talon. But Mom, can you get me down to the ground or so? Yeah, but be home for dinner and all that. And I'm like, it's corny, but I loved it just because it was playing Filmation, but also playing like I played, you know?
Yeah, totally. Just like what you guys were saying. That is how you played. Like,
yeah,
Mom, I'm going outside to play with my He-Man toys, and you're bringing everybody out for this big epic battle. And, you know, your mom's like, sure, just make sure you're all cleaned up and brought them all back in for dinner.
Sure.
You know, that's exactly what that moment was.
Yeah.
You know, he's getting dropped off, ready to fight, and Mom wants you home by dinner.
So this is a great moment to transition to the pictures that Oz sent me. But before we do that, because this is going to be a moment of joy for everybody, I'm telling you, these pictures are fantastic. But before we do that, any final thoughts or revelations that you've garnered from watching season 3 of the CGI show?
Just really, they've left me wanting more. So if anybody from Netflix that's in a position of power, give us more episodes. I want more of it. Not just, you know, I want it for me. I want it for my son. We love watching this together. And really, this is the show that's going to catch the new audience. So again, Mattel, if you've got some input to this, I'm sure you do, because these are your toys. You know, this is what you stick to draw in the new audience. And, you know, keep doing what you're doing, but do more of it. Do more marketing for this somehow. Get it out there so that parents know that this is something that's available. And any Masters of the Universe fans that are, if you're watching this show and for some reason you're not watching the CGI He-Man with your kids, go watch it with them tomorrow. Before you got to go back to work on Monday, go watch CGI He-Man with your kids tomorrow. And then go buy them some toys. Go out to Walmart, go out to Target. You can find CGI He-Man and Skeletor. They got a real neat 2-pack right now. Go grab it. That thing looks awesome. They've got all kinds of fun vehicles to go with it. It's like when you had the toys as a kid. You know, like the average cost of a figure is $10. There he is. That's him. Is that the Masterverse version?
No, this one is the 8-inch one or 10-inch one that's out right now still. I have the Skeletor for it as well. I have these as my versions on the shelf until Masterverse hits. But my son has the whole first wave, and he loves them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That Manny Faces figure is amazing. That's an amazing, amazing toy. Sorry, Oz, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, that's just it. Like, you know, these were the ones that, you know, Santa Claus brought for my son for Christmas. Got him the He-Man CGI ones because, you know, Daddy already has the Origins ones that he can play with whenever he's here. And we do. We get down on the floor and we got Grayskull out and we're playing. And it's fantastic.
Thanos asked, has anybody picked up the Sonic toys? I checked a couple of Sonic drive-thrus, and I can't keep checking, but in my area, I don't think they ever showed up. I could have just missed the boat on that, but that little tiny Skeletor that came with the kids' meal, that was the one that I really wanted to get. That Skeletor, horrible. That's the most adorable Skeletor I've ever seen. Anyway, Shawn, what are your thoughts?
Revelation, as in a revelation from the CGI, I had no idea my favorite character was going to be Cringer.
Oh,
It's the first time that, like, I always love He-Man, obviously point person on the show, but man, they made Cringer into such an amazing character. And instead of Man-at-Arms being the sage teacher, I love that Cringer's that character. And I love that also they have the nemesis of Beast Man to Cringer, and they have history and they have beef, and it's dark. That for that show to actually go into that history, my kids actually cringe knowing what Beastman did to Cringer as Rakaz before he got the powers and all that.
Right.
I had no idea I was going to love the idea of more than one power on Eternia, but we have the Havoc power and the power of Grayskull, and I was like, how has this not been thought previously? This is actually amazing. The concept of the two sides of the coin. And I truly do hope it goes another at least 3, 4, 5 more seasons. I want to see Fisto. I want to see Buzz Off. I want to see Clamp Champ. I want to see Scareglow. I was kind of hoping that Skeletor's ghost would be called Scareglow as the nod to the is he actually Skeletor's ghost when we were a kid, or is he a ghost serving Skeletor and all that? So I was so completely blown off my feet by this show that it is that much fun and enjoyable for me as a 43-year-old man who started with the toys as a kid, and here I am still finding enjoyment because it's just that good. And I'm not going to do the thing with the dancing or the birthday, like I said, and even the bug episode in season 2, I got nothing there either. I'll leave that alone. But season 1, season 3, amazingly solid seasons. So
I'm 100% with you on every point there. I definitely am. I'm looking forward to more seasons. The same reason why I would tune into Filmation every chance I got, I'd be the babysitter. And I insist that they put on, not insist like a jerk, but I would kindly insist, can you please put on this this channel at this time? And I not to see the story, but to see the new characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. As we all know in Filmation, it was always like, oh, another one where we don't get anybody new. Oh, another one where we don't get anybody new. But eventually we get somebody new. I'll never forget that episode. Right. Showed up, and I was like, "Wow, this is so cool!" But I want to see, I want to see Clawful. I want to see Too Bad become Too Bad, and I want to see. I would love to see Scareglow, but I cross my fingers because I do want to see Scareglow, but I almost feel like we already did, because when Skeletor arrives as the ghost of Skeletor, he refers to himself as the ghost of Skeletor, which is what was on the pack.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that was sort of a nod to Scareglow, so I fear that we may not get him beyond that. But I would love to see Granomir.
Right.
I would love to see Mantenna. I just can't wait for the Horde. I just can't wait. That's going to be amazing.
I'm excited to see how artistically we're going to see things go with the Horde, because the style is so different. And another thing that I've really liked about this CGI show is, like what you were saying with the backstory between Cringer and Rakaz. Like, they're not afraid to get dark, even though this is clearly meant for kids. They're not afraid to touch on some darker topics.
Yeah,
you see it with the issues that Ram-Am has with her parents.
Yeah,
you see it with the fact that Keldor tried to kill Adam.
Yeah.
Like we're jumping right into family members attempting to kill other family members, in not a very nice way either. So it's got these darker elements that again call back to the original dark artwork of this.
Yeah.
And yet we can still make it light and friendly and put out a great message that, you know, He-Man was the one that always had the power, you know, in the original cartoons. And with this one, you know, like you said, the kids get up and they jump and they get excited when it's we have the power. Because now everybody, when we were kids, if you were doing any role play with your friends, you were always fighting over who was He-Man.
Yes, exactly.
Because he was the hero. With this, you don't have to fight with your friends to figure out who's going to be He-Man. Because everybody has the power.
Exactly. And I absolutely adore that about the series too, because it is that all-encompassing working together, the teamwork, and the friendship / family. And the family is sometimes the friends that you make becoming that family unit. And they even did that in season 3. Did we just become a family? I'm like, you've already been a family the whole time. You just realized it just there.
Yeah,
right. Since like episode 3, y'all have become family.
Yeah.
You know?
And the other thing too with the darkness really quick is, I mean, just watching the evil masters in their transformation, because Skeletor makes them do it, not that they want to do it. I love how he just, it's completely non-consensual, and he just, boom, you are now my warriors. And just watching like Rakaz, like, you know, doing all of his, you know, craziness, and all of a sudden a freaking Beast Man tears out of his body.
Amazing.
That was insane. So cool.
So again, for those of you who have not watched this series yet but are listening to us, go check it out, because again, as much as it's sold to kids, there is plenty of elements for the adult storytelling as well. And they're doing more with this series than I think they've actually done with any of the other animation media so far. You know, 2000X definitely explored the mythos, the lore. They did a lot of the world building, introduced races of all kinds into it. And the mini comics had done a little bit of that. But it's all literally been for the sole purpose of introducing new toys.
Yeah.
This feels like for the first time, it's not so much about introducing new toys, because everybody that they're adding these developmental levels to, it's characters that are very well established, and they're flipping the scripts on them.
Yeah.
And that to me it's probably the best way to go when trying to introduce, because I can relate with the original character I knew, and I can respect what they're doing with the character now.
Yeah. Definitely. And I'm putting up this comment from Corey from a while back, because from a few minutes ago, I don't know where it came from, but he's onto something here. I feel like you're strongly underestimating the storytelling Into the Spider-Verse had. Well, I know that none of us in this group would ever underestimate the storytelling in Into the Spider-Verse, because that's pretty darn awesome. But I think I'm putting up this comment because I think that Into the Spider-Verse really had a kind of heavy influence on what we're seeing in the CGI show. You know, the unity between disparate characters and coming together in this new and innovative way for this IP. And I know the Spider-Verse is nothing new, but I think that I really feel that there's an influence on the new CGI He-Man show that comes from, it might have come from Into the Spider-Verse for sure.
Right. Well, and just tying it back in with Into the Spider-Verse, I think that had a really good way of reaching new Spider-Man fans. In
Yeah.
the same way that the CGI is reaching new He-Man fans.
Yeah,
You
and not just our kids, right? I
No.
feel like the three of us, like the three of us, serve as examples of people who have shared this with others, I mean, with our children, hoping that they'd get on board. And but this is right on Netflix. The kid can just discover it. They're probably watching, you know, Trolls. What's that troll show?
Troll Hunters.
Troll Hunters, and then
Mhm.
might be showing up as a recommendation because I see a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
And boom, they're in it, and just out of the blue, and then you know, 40 years later, they're going to be telling the same story in their own whatever the technology is going to be, their own version of this about how they discovered it, and that's how you keep you know, an IP like this that feeds our imagination. That's how you keep it alive. And
That's right.
I'm hoping that by us talking about it, it's helping that in some way.
Absolutely. Like, you know, and don't ever be afraid to talk about this kind of love or passion for something that is as seen for kids.
Yeah.
Because, well, we were all kids and we all have that thing that we love. You know, and this is one of those things where over the years I had grown distant from Masters of the Universe for so much. I think a big part of it was like, you know, mid 90s Star Wars toys started hitting the shelves again. I'm a bit younger, so by the time I was getting into toys and stuff, He-Man was all the rage. Star Wars was on its way out. Like, you just didn't see it on shelves anymore. But I had seen the movies and loved them. So in 95, my gears changed and I started collecting all the Star Wars stuff. And then, you know, as I got older and I grew more out of toys and I respected collecting more adult toys and got further away from this, Star Wars kept popping up. But Masters was nowhere to be seen after the 2000X series hit. And just to have retouched that part of my childhood and to gain this passion again and to be able to celebrate with so many like-minded individuals on different outlets, with YouTube and watching other toy streams, and now, you know, doing this stream with you, SKELE VADER, and meeting people who I've listened to as yourself, Shawn, from Legends of Grayskull Podcast. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity to meet so many people who feel pretty much the same, you know, and I think that's great. You know, I love being, as Mega J Retro says, geek proud with this. You know,
that's right.
Exactly. And there is no way I'd ever say I'd underestimate that movie, Into the Spider-Verse. That is one of my absolute favorite Marvel movies ever. And the way that I mean, that is a new way of showing an origin story similar to what we're watching on this CGI series. We're watching a whole new way of opening up this world to everybody and show from the ground up, here's what these characters are. We got to see Miles in who he is, leading up to the end being him finally rising to the occasion and becoming the hero that everybody wasn't sure if he could do it, but then he wanted to get there and he did it. And that was one of the most effective origins I've ever seen on the big screen. Like when he finally gets to that point, I was just like the Cheshire Cat with a smile this big that day.
That's right.
And it's the same with this show. Like when you get to points with the season finales and you're watching these moments where the masters are like, we got to dig in so freaking deep. I don't know how we're going to win this one. And I'm even there going, I don't know how you're going to win this one. I got to keep watching, you know? And it's basically the rewatchability of both of those is so high. Every time I watch CGI with my kids, there's always something else I find that might have been something that I never caught because it didn't matter in season 1, but it's mattering in season 3 now.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, awesome thing for me.
Yeah.
And from a storytelling perspective, they obviously had it mapped out. And they did the same with Spider-Man. I can't wait for the next one of that even, because I need to spend some more time with Gwen and Miles again, because those characters were so well done in that first movie.
I want to make a note. I mean, absolutely, 100%. But there's this other thing happening that's parallel to what we're doing right now. If anybody's watching this right now, or you watched a rerun of this, read Gamer Bud's treatise for season 4 of the CGI show that he's basically sketched out in the chat on the side. You should all take it. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I've caught a couple of glimpses of things. Yes, I'm just going to say this kind of energy deserves that Netflix should be paying attention to you, Gamer Bud, for sure. Fantastic. And then Corey Berger said, I must have misunderstood you. I apologize. No, it's okay. I just saw that comment. And I was like, oh, I hope we didn't somehow, convey that in any way. So we're on board with you, loving that. The animation for Miles is actually a different film rate from everything Pixar. Yes. Just brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely.
The lessons that have been learned within the last 30 years of how to do certain things with film. Corey and I have talked many times about our love of movies and good cinematography, because there's a lot of good actors out there, but it takes a lot to convey a story through a lens of a camera effectively.
Yeah, for sure.
And
here's an example. Sorry. That was just perfect timing for me to put this up.
Yeah, just, it's crazy what they do with different cinematography. And so, speaking of crazy, seeing things and telling a story through the eyes of the lens of a camera.
Yes.
Forgive us. This is old Polaroids from back in the 80s. And for God, I hope everybody who's in here knows or remembers what a Polaroid is.
I'm sure they do.
But yeah, so this is my house in 1980, whenever. I can't exactly swear. I've got to be at least like 2 to 3 years old here, and this is Christmas Day, opening up several Masters of the Universe that was given to me, and I can't see it as well with the image here, what I'm opening up there, but if I am correct, that is actually not so much the Point Dread Talon fighter. If you look, that's the model for the Talon fighter. You notice it's got like those more reddish wings.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I remember as a kid breaking the Talon fighter, and yes, they are still a thing.
Say just briefly, because we all know about Polaroid cameras. I was wearing my I have a Polaroid T-shirt, and I wore it to the grocery store today. And the fellow at the register is probably our age, maybe a few years older. He's like, I bet people don't even know what those are anymore. I was like, well, actually, they did sort of come back, and there was like, I feel like they keep coming and going and coming and going. So yeah, they are definitely still a thing.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, so I hate to say it, I broke this.
Yeah.
And I know there's a whole bunch of collectors out there cringing and hearing this, but again, give me credit. Look how tiny I am here. I still got hair on my head. I mean, I haven't seen that in ages. So yeah, I broke that Talon fighter and did get Point Dread and the Talon fighter as a replacement later, which I think is kind of key to say, because my parents were of the ilk. If you broke it, this did not get replaced.
Yeah.
At least not by the same thing. They weren't buying me the same toy twice.
Gamer Bud said he has some of his sister at 3 years old opening her vintage Swift and She-Ra toys. That's awesome.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because we'll see some of that coming up soon. But this is my dad laying on the floor, building my battle bones for me.
That's so cool. I love that. They got Cabbage Patch Kid there, and there's one of those TVs, man.
Yeah.
There's few pictures that can truly encapsulate the 80s as well as this does.
That's awesome. Now here's that picture of your sister.
Yes, so this is my sister, and this was her opening up her collection. And you see we've got Swiftwind, we've got the Crystal Palace, there's Catra right there. She had me sending her we were talking about this when I called her up and asked her to send me a bunch of these because just a few years ago I visited my sister in Indiana. My dad had passed away, and I was going through a ginormous, if you guys have ever seen the pictures of the box of loot from Big Bad Toy Store and how those come, that's about the size of the box of pictures I had to dig through.
Wow.
And we were coming across a lot of these. So I knew she had them, and I asked her if she would kindly go through those so that she could send them to me. And while we were talking, I went ahead and screenshotted every single, because she couldn't remember. She remembered certain toys that she had, but she couldn't remember all of them. And my descriptions were not doing a good enough job because I played with them a lot because they were involved with my He-Man. So, I ended up using that app that I talked about last time, MOTU Admin, went down and screenshotted every picture of everything and sent them to her. And she was like, oh, yeah, I remember this. Oh, yeah, I remember that. And it's a shame that it's really such a small, you don't see as much as she really had. She had just about everything for Princess Power, with the exception of like some gift sets or like some of those added clothes where it was more that Barbie play style than the He-Man play style.
This is an awesome picture. The framing is so cool too. It almost looks like she's inside the Crystal Castle.
Yeah, if you're ever wondering how big those play sets are, my sister, she's 5 years older than me. So if I were 3, that is an 8-year-old child that the Crystal Castle is towering over.
That's so cool. Look at that Catra down there. That's really awesome. The packaging on those things were so awesome.
Yeah. And here we are. We've got out the Grayskull.
Yep.
Very cool.
The collector's case.
I had that. Yeah.
You had that? That's awesome.
I had a bunch. I had another one with He-Man about to throw Skeletor off the top of Grayskull.
They had like 3 different ones.
Yeah.
All of them kind of had like a primary color, if I remember. There was like of course, my yellow one here that we see. There was a red one, and then there was a blue one also. I want to see these come back. I would love for them to re-release some of these carrying cases. These are also some of my favorites here. Now, you can barely see the back of my head at the bottom, and you may see my sister down there at the bottom. So, again, we all remember you had those local video stores back in the 80s. Not everybody had a Blockbuster on the corner back then. So this is back when you had those local video stores. And if you see this, I'm sure this was around the VHS release of the movie, is why we had He-Man, that's him behind the counter there, handing out, as you can see, I believe that's Battle Armor Skeletor.
Yeah, that's Battle Armor Skeletor, yeah.
Yeah, he was handing them out because of the release of the movie. And so, like, again, this is another thing that it's a moment captured in time you just can't see anymore.
It says the Star Wars of the 80s. That's so cool.
Yeah. I was doing the same thing when I got this. I was like zooming in on like the little things in the background, like, oh my God. Because, I can't remember what all that stuff said back then. But that was how they were promoting He-Man. This was the Star Wars of the 80s. It took over where Star Wars left off.
I think that's so funny because Jedi came out in 83, right?
Right. It's not even like the Star Wars was completely gone.
Exactly. Oh, that's so cool. Look at the inside of that thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is again, that's myself and my sister right down there, and that is my cousin above. You know, all just sitting around playing with Castle Grayskull. You know, and this is what it was all about. Like, you know, you had these centerpieces of the collection, like Castle Grayskull. You know, you had Snake Mountain. I mean, I had everything but Eternia when it comes to the different play sets, the Slime Pit, Fright Zone, Snake Mountain, and all that. I wish we had more pictures of it. I know in that giant box of pictures, there are more pictures of what I had as a kid is with the collection and pictures of me playing. Because I remember when going through the pictures, there was definitely a picture of me with Spydor, you know,
Nice.
playing with that. So when you mentioned it earlier, I was like really, you know, wishing I had that picture still. Because again, that was like that was the flagship of the bad guys, you know.
Exactly.
My family, I don't have any pictures like this lying around. I don't know what happened to them. Shawn, do you have pictures like this in your archives?
My mother probably still would. She actually brought over. See, if I would have known that you guys were doing this, I would have tried to dig the one up that she gave me recently. It's not me playing with any of the figures. It was me legit dressed up as He-Man on my front porch in Baltimore. And I actually was in the I have the power pose. And it's like never has one kid looked like he had less power, but man, did I look facially like I was determined to have the power that day.
I was probably right around the corner from you.
Who knows? Maybe. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
this is nuts.
And I can't make out from this picture what that is that I've opened. I think it might be Battle Bones. I know one of the pictures I'm holding Battle Bones. But, you know, just again, you see the big collector's case. But yeah, there's me opening Battle Bones. Okay, so that might have been something else I was opening. But just
I could have done a more logical order for these pictures. I apologize.
It's okay. I kind of sent them over as a mess. I could have ordered them before I sent them to you, but just, you know, again, like 2 years ago, Christmas Day, I got
Oh, that's a repeat. Sorry.
He-Man, and I got Skeletor and Battle Cat, and just like, so here I am again, you know, 40 years after these pictures, reliving these same joys that I had back then. And yes, this is me standing with He-Man. That's my hand on the Sword of Power that looked nothing like the Sword of Power.
His loincloth is flesh color. So
I know it looks so bad.
But of course, that's one of the great joys of these characters, right? They're practically, in their underwear. But I think this is so fantastic because the outfit, the He-Man armor is definitely based on the '87 movie, definitely homemade, which is just awesome. Like that's the real deal right there.
And kudos to this guy too, because this is clearly somebody that the movie store, hired in or already worked there. I don't know, because when he was dressed in his Prince Adam clothes or something, I never recognized him as He-Man again. So it's just really like, again, that big moment of like, kudos to this guy for coming into his work, or they hired him to nearly naked and just standing around taking pictures with everybody all day. Like,
even better, there's tinsel.
Yeah.
Which means it's winter. Wait, when did the movie come out? Did it come out for Christmas season?
Let me check. Let me see when it came out, the home video.
The tinsel is leftover, which could very well have happened in the video store from the holiday season. But this guy's in his nothings out there in winter.
Yep.
That's awesome.
All I can think is that smile on the guy's face is, after this, I got a date and I'm already halfway ready for it. 'Cause he's really not giving much to the imagination. He's
I mean,
probably like,
he's
yeah,
jumping to the end of the date pretty quick.
exactly.
Look at little Oz, though. Oz is like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
It was the coolest moment of my life. I met my hero. Okay, so I cannot find exactly. Apparently, the VHS did release in 1987, so I'm going to assume it released by Christmas of 1987.
Yeah.
Which, as we all know, the movie came out in 87. So for it to get a home release on VHS later that year, that's pretty fast for back then. Because sometimes a movie that came out in theaters, you didn't see it on VHS for at least a year.
True. That's true. That's true. Maybe
So-
it was, yeah. Well, we'll have to do some research on that and find out.
Right.
That's the
But
last picture of the slideshow, but I think that's a really good one to end on. I think that the smile
Really?
of the guy playing He-Man is genuine. You can see
Yeah.
the last. I love that.
This was probably his favorite day at work. And
Yeah.
again, we all remember how relevant He-Man was to culture at the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, it was beyond toys. It was beyond a cartoon. He-Man was everywhere. I mean, it took the world by storm and paved the way for brands that did the same, like Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and Star Wars did a lot of the same too, from the 70s going into the 80s. It paved the way for He-Man to do what it did with the way the merchandising was.
Mhm.
But like, you know, Pixel Dan just showed off when he went to PowerCon. He picked up a He-Man drink dispenser for like your party, where it's got a jug you would fill up with juice, and you put it on, and you know, like a water cooler at an office or something. And you know, they had soap dispensers, alarm clocks, like it touched everything. So this guy knew right now he was playing the most powerful man in the universe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And he enjoyed it.
The end of it all. Right at the end until New Adventures came around, right? Like this is
Right,
Yeah.
right.
the
You know
end.
what's funny though? His build is definitely more along the line of New Adventures than the He-Man that we all brought to the store, you know.
Mhm.
Right. Well, that's that. So I'm so excited that you had the guts to share those, Oz, because I wish I had some too to share. And but I think part of this show, I'd like part of this show, and I know you'd like this too, Oz, to be honoring the nostalgic aspect of Masters for us. And Shawn, thank you for sticking around for the slideshow.
That was great. I wouldn't have missed that. That
Right.
made me feel like I got to go back in time. Like he said, he was probably right around the corner from my house. So I'm like, hey, I bet I was playing that day too. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. You know, just a couple miles apart from one another. We were both doing the same thing that day.
Yeah,
Christmas Day,
yeah.
1987. We
That-
were
see-
playing He-Man.
If you and I got in the same room, our parents probably would have had to pry us apart because we would have been like, "No,
Yeah.
he gets He-Man. This is amazing."
That's right. That's right. You know, I mean, I absolutely love that time, and I'm really hoping if my sister sits down and goes through that box more, that she can find some more of those pictures. Now, like, you know, I've joked around before that I'm kind of like Sasquatch, often seen, rarely photographed. So there are not a lot of pictures of me floating around out there like that. So to have those childhood memories, have them captured on film,
Mhm.
and yeah, to share those with the world now, that's on YouTube forever.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
This little tiny version of me playing with that stuff, you know, it's fantastic. I sharing those key moments, because it, you know, like you said, Shawn, it brings everybody back to that nostalgia of how we felt that day at Christmas when we opened up those toys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just the interior space of the living room or wherever we were in your home made me feel like I was transported back to my own home, even though it's not the same home at all, right? But
Exactly.
there's
Right.
so amazing what the quality, the quality we were talking about, how difficult it is to achieve authenticity through the lens of a camera. But, you know, that those moments are, you know, we can all identify with that authentic thing that we're seeing there. And Gamer Bud said he has a bunch of pictures he'll send. Great, send them. We're going to always be talking. There's always going to be a feature in here where we talk about nostalgia. So definitely send that. And yeah, and Duchess of Darkness getting on the nostalgia train too here. But this was awesome. Shawn, I want to say, and I know I don't want to speak for Oz, so definitely let you say what you got to say. But I want to say really thank you so much for being here tonight and for joining us in this discussion. And you know, really, we're talking about old memories, you know, bonding with new memories. So the nostalgia extending itself into a new nostalgia, which is sort of a phenomenon that I didn't think I would get to experience with this particular IP. We have that sort of ongoing with Star Wars, but it's so exciting to see this happen in such a complicated and interesting way for Masters of the Universe. And I'm really excited that you, as being you know, being a very well-known voice in the Masters of the Universe community, where you felt like coming on tonight. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I didn't expect that to work out the way it did tonight, and it was funny. We celebrated my son's birthday. I was really tired, and then all of a sudden you go, "Hey, do you want to do the show?" All of a sudden I'm like, "I got an 8th wind. I got this. I'm talking He-Man." You know. But no, like one thing I really wanted to say from binging your episodes is I really love the positivity and the energy you guys are bringing to Masters again. You're not, like they always talk about, you know, the toxic fandom, and this is such a welcoming, positive place to be talking in. And I really appreciate the discussion. And Oz has so many insightful things. Like I really enjoy when he gets a moment to have his whole thought process spelled out on this show. He brings such a muscle of the power of not just knowledge, but just the insight into this brand that I'm just sitting there listening to each episode going, this guy gets it. This guy just, it's like, I'm happy I found Oz through this show. And I'm also happy because SKELE VADER's been interacting with Matt and me ever since we started ours. And it was always a pleasure to be in touch with you. And in future, the door is always open at our place, and we'd love to have you back. And Oz too, if we can set something up with you, that would be amazing. I think between you and Matt, I might not know what to say though, because Matt has opinions, and you definitely would be like, "Oh my God, this is the 5-hour epic we've always waited for." Which, hey, I absolutely love talking shop. There is nothing wrong with that. But I thank you both for being such great hosts. I appreciate the offer to come out, and I was so happy to be able to do it tonight.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I could sit back and listen to Oz preach Masters.
He's got it. I mean, like I said, when he goes, it's like he has his moment, and I just sit there. I'm like, yeah, and he'll bring out things that I'm like, hey, I never even thought of that. That's a great point, you know. And so yeah, you guys are a great team. I'm looking forward to more episodes from you guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, Shawn, it's been my pleasure to actually meet you and talk with you after hearing your voice for so long. So this has been really cool. And then to find out that common ground history too.
I know.
Wow, that's
neighbors.
You know, we're from Smaltimore, so it just happens that way.
It does. But I love that. I love that. When I heard you say Baltimore, I'm just like, awesome. That's just awesome.
Right. Yeah, it's fantastic, you know, and I love how this brand does tend to bring people together. And I mean, here we are, 3 different guys who we wouldn't actually know each other if it wasn't for the brand, really. I mean, you know, the way this can bring people together, and we all share such an awesome passion for the same property. It's fantastic. I love this. I love getting on here every week and talking about it with, you know, SKELE VADER himself, Shawn. This has been an awesome moment tonight. I was glad, really glad, you know, when SKELE VADER reached out to me earlier. He was like, "Hey, you know, how would you feel about a special guest tonight?" And I was just like, "Well, yeah, let's bring it." And then he told me who it is. I'm like, "Whoa, no way! That's wow! All right, I'm on board. This is going to be amazing."
I am showing this clip right here to my wife tomorrow and going, "This is why I podcast." See? No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
No, thank you so much.
I had a similar moment. I haven't got a chance to meet Shawn, but I did get a chance to meet the Dooch, Matt, at PowerCon 2021, and I was really quiet when I met him because I was so nervous because it's somebody that I've been listening to for a while, and
sure,
and you know, when you
right,
somebody that shares the same, for me, when I meet somebody that shares the same interests as me and somebody that I've been paying attention to, like, you know, this is going to sound creepy, but you guys are doing podcasts, so your people are listening to you and paying attention, but
yeah.
like, you know, it was awesome. But Shawn and Matt add to the community in such a way to make this discussion comfortable, and that's to me, and I know you share this too, Oz, what this is all about. This is an inclusive community because we all share a very similar attachment to a particularly unique thing.
right.
Well, I've had monologues in my head complaining about Ram Mam breaking into song. I could complain about that, I'm sure. But then if I were to watch myself doing it on, you know, if I were to ever put the YouTube video on again, I'd be like, all right, SKELE VADER, chill out. You know, Shawn and Matt make me feel like that it's okay for me to geek out in a positive way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of our mission statements on the show is let's have a talk. Let's discuss this, you know, and we feel like all opinions are valid and we're not going to tell you you're wrong. And if you come at us and help us see why you like something, that makes us appreciate that point of view even more. And we're not interested in gatekeeping. We're not interested in any of the toxicity. We're just interested in talking shop about a brand that is ignited our imaginations for 40 years now.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say this really quick. I do deeply enjoy, though, listening to others complain about Masters sometimes. It's a lot of fun. There's part of me that's like, I do enjoy that. I enjoy watching it, but I'm not good at complaining. So I just rather think about the positive things.
Honestly, like, you guys bring a great perspective to it, and I think that you know, keep doing what you're doing. The fans will be there, and they'll keep growing because this is such a positive place. And we got a lot of good feedback from people who are happy that we're positive, and we try and, like, I know I have a rant here and there, but for the most part, we both try to stick to. We don't need to badmouth it or bash it. If we don't like it, we'll just explain why we don't like it, and we'll leave it at that. Yeah. And you guys are doing a very similar thing, which is part of why I was really thrilled to be on tonight, because I appreciate what you're bringing to the table as fans, doing your thing, just like Matt and I, just like Podcasters of the Universe with Steve and Jeremy. I mean, it's all like a community, and it's great to come over and, you know, borrow a cup of sugar like this from time to time and get to talk shop while we're at it. So,
I really want to say, Shawn, thank you. And, you know, can't say thank you enough, I know. But I also want to thank the group of people that come onto this show and chat with us while we're doing these lives, like if we just had this group come every week or every time we come on here, that would be amazing. So
Sure.
I am so, Oz and I, we've talked about it. It's like so cool to have the people who are here. And then, it's really exciting, since Oz has joined the Skelevator team in such an important way. Like the viewership of this channel has grown so much. He genuinely is the Wizard of Oz, bringing the magic.
He lives up to the title.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's do a closing statement. Oz, what do you want to say before we part ways here?
Well, I just really want to say it is always a pleasure and honor to share my thoughts with yourself, Skelevator. Shawn, it's been amazing tonight to be able to share the stage with you a bit. And it's absolutely incredible the fact that we have people showing up, chatting with us every single week here. Gamer Bud, I appreciate you jumping on and spending the time to chat with us. Duchess of Darkness, it means a world that you come out as somebody who is not a huge Masters of the Universe fan, but you show up and you support and you're enjoying the content that we're putting out and learning stuff about it. I think that's fantastic. Same thing with, I wish I could just say to everybody in the chat, and call you all up individually and tell you how great it is. That's where I have fun doing this. I really enjoy engaging with you guys in the chat and seeing what, you guys are talking about, what you guys like about this. It just, sometimes it brings me new perspective and makes me fall in love with, MOTU in a whole new way in a lot of ways, and it's Hillian Dread's got it. The fandom is awesome for MOTU. It's got its moments where it gets rough. It really does. But at the same point, at the end of the day, we all tend to sit back and just say, you know what? We love Masters.
Yeah.
And so, again, thank you, everybody, for, showing up each week, giving us a reason to be here, and, making sure that we're going to be here next week for you guys, too.
Yeah. Do the usual thing. Click like and subscribe, and definitely go over to Legends of Grayskull Podcast. You can listen to them on any of your podcast platforms. Yeah. And they also have a YouTube channel where they post their podcasts as well. So definitely engage with the Legends of Grayskull guys. They're amazing. And Oz and I are serious. We say, we've been listening to them for a while. That it's something that I can rely on. So, Shawn, thank you. Click like and subscribe. Become a Patreon if you feel like contributing. We've got Gamer Bud on as our first and awesome Patreon. So if you feel like contributing, I know money's tight, but every little bit counts and helps. And I think that's it. Oh yeah. No. Next week we've got Eric from Motorheads coming on.
That's right.
The artist who has created the latex masks for NECA that are based on the vintage action figures. He's going to come on. We're going to talk about his process. We're going to talk about how this deal came about and talk about what we can maybe expect from the future. And he's definitely into the same stuff we're all into, and also I don't know if you've all seen his stuff, but it started off, he was doing as far as the masks go, he started off making Star Wars action figure rubber masks. So then he moved into other IPs, and it's been really exciting to see his career grow over the years. And then this was just huge news. So I'm really excited that Oz and I are very excited to have him as our guest next week. So please tune in for that. That'll be good. And I think that's it. Now we can all go to sleep.
As it hits the midnight hour here on the East Coast.
Yeah, 1 minute away. The stroke of midnight.
I was for Oz because, and now Shawn, of course, because he's over on East Coast time, and then maybe some of you in the chat are too. And I feel for you. If I'm up past 9, I have a hard time. So, yeah, Oz and I want to, as always, I want to thank you for joining me here in Toy Frenzy and being part of this and contributing such amazing digital artwork for the show. I want to say I think Mattel is taking some liberties using some of your brilliant images with the whole Tron thing.
Nothing says 80s retro more than laser grid patterns on a dark background.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that there's a sort of vein that we're all tapped into here. So, yeah, Oz, you're doing great stuff here, and I really appreciate you doing this with me. So, anyways,
it's an honor. Thank you.
Oh, shucks. Thank you everybody for being here, and we'll see you all next week.
That's right. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. See you next week.